Hey, what is going on, guys? Today is not Sunday, it is Saturday, but we are hanging out right before the new year, right before 2024, hanging out with you guys. Glad you're here. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the AV Experience Podcast. We're going to hang out for a while, answer some questions. So if you've got questions in home theater, definitely drop those in the chat. As you can tell, my voice is still, it's weird, man. I cannot shake this stinking cold.
You're recovering, though.
It's getting better, definitely. But it's just, there's something here on my vocal cords that just won't totally let go. But definitely glad to be here and probably get some new folks that aren't used to joining. So that's going to be cool and exciting tonight, just because it's a different night. But we figured everybody's going to be busy with holidays and family and celebrating the new year. And some of you guys might be a little bit inebriated. So you never know, right, man? People like to hang out and have a good time. So, but we figured we'd bump it up a day early, and that way we could hang out and not kind of cut into your family time. So, and Jessica and I think normally we don't really do anything for New Year's. We may, a lot of times she's in bed. She's like, I could care less. And I may stay up, but I'm not like celebrating New Year's.
I don't remember the last time I stayed up. Jonathan, do you? Well, you don't sleep anyway, so you're up.
We do every year. I mean, my normal bedtime's 1 or 2 a.m., so it doesn't mean anything to me.
Right. So, but we thought about, we may go over to Disney. There's a place called Disney Springs, and it's just kind of like a shopping area, and there's dining there, and then there's probably pretty much everything in Orlando. They've always got fireworks and stuff, so I'm sure we'll see some over there. But that'll be like literally one of the first years that we've done anything on New Year's. So, but let us know where you're dropping in the chat, where you're listening in from. I see we got some folks from Miami. Good to see you, Josh. Let's look here. Benny, he's in Florida too. What's up, buddy? But yeah,
Benny, did you get the stuff I sent you for that amp?
Oh, Benny got some new toys. I saw y'all emailing back and forth.
Yeah, he got one of those amps.
Nice. One of your Buckeyes?
And then I decided that I was staying with those Buckeyes, so now I got to get them again.
That's hilarious.
Whoops.
Oops.
That's funny. I've got a guy that emailed me today. He's debating between the NZ8, NZ9, and was asking my opinion. And I said, Ryan has had way more experience with those two, especially owning the NZ9. So I asked him if he wanted me to get in touch with you. So
I don't know what you're talking about. There's no difference between the NZ8 and the NZ9.
Well, that's what he said. We said that sometime, and I was like, I don't think I've ever said that.
There's a difference.
So, but I told him, I said, you've had way more experience. And I told him also, you're not going to encourage him to buy something if you truly don't, believe that he needs it. It's a good fit for his setup.
Well, there was a guy that I talked to yesterday who wanted to buy something, and I told him, no, like you don't need to buy a new amp. There's no reason for you to do this. Just use the AVR.
Sure.
So we're entirely open to telling you guys no. I'm not here. We're not here to try and pry money out of people's hands. It's all about just helping people along their journey.
Yeah. See, Ryan says NZ9 is worth the jump in price more than the NZ8 to me. Very cool. Yeah. Well, especially Ryan, you also need that extra output because you got that massive screen. I cannot wait to experience your setup.
There are some things in the works that I wish I could talk about that I can't yet.
For you or for him?
For this room. Oh, for that Ryan. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm excited for Ryan's room.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm excited for yours too.
There's too many Ryans.
Yeah, I was replying to Ryan. I had that down there in his comment.
It's even more confusing because there's a guy named Ryan helping me build my room, and then I've got Ryan Kramer, and then I'm Ryan. There's too many Ryans. The older I get, the more Ryans there are.
Yeah, for sure, man. But yeah, so if you got questions, man, drop those in the chat. We will get to those in the order that they come in. So if you don't hear us address it, just know it's in the queue more than likely. We don't do every single question, but we do a lot of questions. I mean, sometimes there's probably 50 questions that we answer. Of course, super chats get moved up to the top, but those are not required by any means. And so anything exciting happening in you guys' life before we jump right into some questions?
Have Jonathan go first.
I've been doing a whole lot of testing to the point where I'm kind of like ready to put my theater back together. So directional bass, you know, the Marantz 2023, Denon 2023 units have that directional bass.
Yes.
I've been doing some really intentional testing. So I have my subs arranged in 4 stacks. I'm 4 stacks of 2. So there's 2 in that far corner. It's the 4 quadrants of the room. So the corners and going back and forth and between lots of just demo content. Probably like I've gone through about 40 or 50 demo clips back and forth, and I've gone through 3 or 4 full-length movies.
Okay.
And the outcome to me is that it's not really a real thing.
Okay.
Like it's more marketing.
But would you say that but would you say that it's not really worth it because of the content that's being pushed to the rear channels?
I just don't think you can tell. And so I'll give you the biggest example today. I've been getting forum feedback, you know, like people say, try this clip. This is the one you can really tell. So what I've been doing in the case in point is I raised my crossovers. I usually use a 90 hertz crossover. I went to 120 hertz for this so that I give it a more likely chance to spit output to the different subwoofers. So that means anything from the main speakers that's below 120 hertz, if it's like a full range signal coming to any of the speaker channels, it's going to get routed to the subwoofer that's closest to that speaker. So normally my crossover would be 90 hertz. This gives it an extra 30 hertz that's pushing to the sub. The LFE is split equally between all 4 subwoofers. So effectively, any full range signal gets routed to the nearest sub, and the hope is that you would hear it. Well, here's the practicality of it. The one that everyone keeps saying is the one that's the most relevant is a clip from Bumblebee. It's the first like 15 minutes of Bumblebee. There's 2 different scenes in there that they say is great.
Right.
I couldn't really tell any difference. I raised my crossover all the way to 200 hertz and I played it again, and I still couldn't really hear any difference. I mean, it sounds great, but it doesn't sound any different. Okay. So then I lowered mine. Then I lowered it back down to 90 hertz where I normally have it, and I played it in just standard LFE with all 4 subs, you know, just doing standard LFE. And if anything, I felt like there was actually more directional bass coming out of the standard LFE because now my speakers are playing lower, and so I'm getting more like than the 200 hertz. I did that 290 back to back.
Okay.
I felt like there was more direction coming out of the 90 hertz LFE, the standard LFE. So it isn't that it's completely worthless. There are about 4 out of about 40 or 50 tracks that I found that do make it. I'm not even going to say obvious. I'm going to say subtly appear to have bass coming from the back of the room or the sides of the room.
Okay.
I've marked those 4 clips down in the thread, but the vast majority of clips I've tried, a lot of things from people feedback or just things like, you know, this should work. They don't really work. And you know, I feel like I'm giving it every opportunity because I raised my sub levels 10 dB over reference. I got a real nice flat response across the room, even without any EQ, just my normal shelf filters. I mean, I have a picture of it in my thread. It's nice and flat. Like, what else can you do? I mean, I'm going back and forth. I have my father-in-law testing with my daughter testing with me. They're both just feeling the same thing. Like, there's not a whole lot of difference here, if there's any difference. And it's kind of one of those things that it's so subtle you don't know if you're hearing a difference. And if that's the case, then there might as well not be a difference, right? Because I'm listening for it. I'm tuning my crossovers to hear it. I'm trying to find it, and I can't really find it.
Yeah. And I love that, man. Are you going to make a video on that, Jonathan, on your channel?
Right now, it's a big thread. I might make a video on it, though. I guess it could be relevant.
Man. I'm telling you, it's just a totally different audience, totally different dynamics. And so if you guys aren't subscribed, Jonathan does some really cool stuff, especially with like a lot of testing. I mean, he really, what I love about you too, Jonathan, is you don't rush through that stuff. When you do any kind of testing, you kind of laboriously go over it. Number one, to make sure you're doing it accurately and that you're not missing something. And then you'll try other things. You'll tweak this and try that. And you just want to make sure that it's accurate first and foremost. And a lot of times you do share that on the AVS forum, but Jonathan does have a YouTube channel. You can just search for Jonathan Von England. There's his name right there, but definitely subscribe to him. I'd love to see a video on that. Just make it more than 38 seconds this time.
So I put the chat in the private chat. I put the AVS forum link. Put that in the main chat if you will.
I was glad to do that. I'm gonna drop it over here. This is link to AVS thread. I'll drop it in the chat, and I'll also go ahead and put it in the description of this video. So if you're watching this on the replay, you'll be able to get access to that as well.
Yeah, and so another thing that's kind of interesting, I read about this on the forums on and off. People saying like it really makes a difference. It's subtle, but you can tell, and it makes it feel more natural. And there's all these kind of like promotions of it, you know, just soft promotions. Not anyone saying like it's a night and day difference, but soft promotions. All the people that I asked, save one, like, what clips do you think you recommend to showcase it? Nobody ever has anything to showcase. So like, just try it for a while and see what you think type responses. So that's what I've done. I said, for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to have my room like this. I'm just going to listen to it. I'm going to go day in and day out. I'm going to listen to multiple clips. I'm going to write it up. It's exactly what I've been doing. I think that it's one of those placebo things, quite honestly, because I just feel like it's just one of those placebo things. And that's unfortunate, because I was hoping that it would be more than that, but that's what my testing is revealing so far. I'm not opposed to continue to test. If you guys watch in the chat have any suggestions of other content you want me to watch, I'm all ears. You know, I'm trying everything people are recommending.
Do you think that maybe it could have something to do with your room?
Maybe. I mean, but in what capacity?
I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I don't know.
The only thing that came to my mind, because I have a really nice frequency response from these. Like, if you look in that thread that I put in there, I can pull it up if you want. Michael,
no,
you want to pull it up, or you want to move on?
Okay.
I am trying. Sorry, I'm not good at multitasking. I was trying to find the actual chat, not chat, but the comments on the live stream. But
are you?
I was going to add.
Are the subs level matched at your main listening? Okay.
Yes.
Then I don't think it should matter.
And there's other idiosyncrasies I want to talk about briefly, but what I was wondering about is, if you had a wooden floor, would that transmit a little differently than my concrete basement pad? I don't know the answer to that, maybe. Or if they were closer to the seats where you kind of got more acoustic energy off the sub than where they are. I will tell you this, the guy who's the strongest advocate on this on AVS Forum is a guy named Nala. He uses Hover Easy with directional bass. So instead of using subwoofers, the Hover Easy is that basically the inner tube loaded driver, right? So the driver is in a piece of wood, and there's a bicycle tire inner tube that provides the suspension. And as that driver fires, it makes the inner tube bounce and the wooden panel that's on bounce. Well, he has that directional bass routed to the four corners of his chair with those Hover Easy things. And he says that's a big difference. He says it's night and day over just standard fee.
Sure. But I think what happens a lot of times in this is that, and I've talked to you about this a little bit with doing room EQ comparisons, is there's so much going on that we can't comprehend any of these differences. Like our senses are overloaded with all of this stuff, and we're not able to perceptually determine where did this come from when there's so much going on. When you do something with like Hover, or if you did it with transducers or something in some capacity, I think it's much easier because it's right there. Right? It's very easy for you to tell, but when it's a wavelength fired from 10, 15 feet away, there's too much going on in that area. And I think it's too difficult for us to be able to perceptualize and locate any of those differences. So I'm with Jonathan. I think there's something there, but I don't think we could potentially perceive it.
Let me share this real quick, and we won't spend a whole lot more time on this, but just to kind of show. Can you see my screen right now?
Yeah, you might want to zoom in.
Okay, so this is the thread. I just first off started how Marantz labels it in the manual, Denon Marantz. I showed my parametric EQ shell filter that I apply to all my subs equally, so all 8 of them have this exact same shell filter. And I showed what it does in my room. This is measuring from my MLP in my room. This is 10 hertz. This is 987. This is 7 hertz. So I'm realistically pretty flat between like 11 hertz and 100 hertz here without any EQ, just the shell filter. That's the only thing that's applied. So I've been turning Odyssey off with this for this testing. I ran Odysseys to set all the distances and everything, and then I turned it off, and I've been manually changing the crossovers in the testing. So this is the arrangement of the subs. There's 2 in each corner, like I mentioned. And then you know, I'm sitting in my main listening position as normal. The subs just aren't in that normal thing. And these are some of the tracks that I've paid attention to, or that I've tried and demoed back and forth. The Revenant, you know, was the movie I watched. Here's a couple of them that actually did matter. In the Trinoff Music 1 demo, there's about 4 or 5 notes that very clearly come from the back of the room. It's about 15 seconds in a 2.5 minute clip. So pretty minor, but there are, I mean, like repeatedly, there are a couple notes come from there. The Dolby Atmos sleeve.
To my point earlier with both of these tracks, there's not a lot going on during those times. Like you are meant to focus on those things. When in all of these movies, or if you're doing like spatial music or something, there's so much going on that I think what happens is it all gets lost. So I think it may be there, and I think it objectively is a thing. I just don't think it necessarily matters because we can't perceive it from a main listening position.
Right. I think that's probably true because to your point, it's like an individual bass drum kind of like moving.
I know
around
exactly
the room
what
on
you're
that
talking
one.
about in that track and in the Leaf.
And on the Leaf, it's like a leaf that's thumping and moving around the room, like thump, 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 as it circles around. And when as it circles the back of the room, you hear the thumps coming from the back of the room. And more to the point, like I won't go back there and I touch the woofers, and I can tell, yeah, all right, I can feel that little seed moving around the room, like it is actually doing what you expect it to be doing.
Sure.
Here's a bunch more testing that I did. And there's some placebo going on there. Like some of the time, like this Band of Brother ones, I thought it was doing, but when I went back and touched it, it's not. And if it is, you can't tell anyway. There's some maybes in here.
Right.
This is another one, like a thump, 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 like as it count down, and that sub comes alive as it moves around the back of the room. So it's like what Ryan said, it's kind of the individual stuff that happens. And this is perhaps the best one that I've found so far, is knowing as this plane swings around, it's on the left hand of the side of the screen that it crashes, and the left side of the sub lights up, and you can hear that that's directional. But this is such a good clip anyway that it's been in my like demo rotation when guests come over. So it's not like it's bad to start with. This gives a little bit of direction, but it's not bad to start with.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, and then there's 5 pages of kind of like testing different things. So I've watched about 5 movies so far, and none of the movies could I detect anything. The demo clip stuff is where I've kind of found it more.
Right.
So anyway, that's probably right now.
Good enough.
Well done.
Yeah. So definitely go check out. I've dropped the ABS thread in the chat as well as in the description of this video. So again, if you're watching this on the replay, you can head down to the description and get an access to that. And hopefully we'll see a video on that too, man. Even just a summary. It wouldn't have to be as in depth.
That thread's also been really active, which is super cool.
Yeah. I love it, man. I love
it.
it.
And another kind of cool thing, just to kind of finish it up, there's a few guys that have been on the side that they were proponents of it, saying it sounded more natural and stuff. And I encouraged them in the thread to like try some of these clips and do a blind test. And one of them, for instance, had his son over and they tried to do their own blind testing, and he came to the same conclusion I did. He's like, I thought there was a difference on these clips, and I can't tell when I'm back and forth. So like so many things in this hobby, there's a lot of placebo engaged, right? You think, oh, this is new technology, is going to sound great. And now maybe you're detecting something, maybe you're not. If you're not flipping back and forth, you're probably not. And it's, it's just there, and it's nothing wrong with it. It's just, that's how our brains work. If we're told the bass is coming from the left-hand side, then we hear the bass coming from the left-hand side, but you go touch it and it's not, it's coming from everywhere because the LFE signal's split between all 4.
Yeah. And I heard somebody explain it recently, and they were like, even if it is placebo, but it brings you more happiness, is that still bad?
That's the age-old question, right?
Okay, maybe if you think your whatever made your image look better, maybe you got some new cables, and you're like, man, my image looks amazing. I think that was the scenario there.
Oh, that Facebook post?
I think so.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And somebody mentioned, they were like, well, if he bought it and he feels that it makes his system better, then just let him enjoy it. And it's like, I mean, true.
That's fine. So, and I don't have a problem with that at all. If someone says this makes me happy, fine.
Yeah.
What I don't like is when they spread mistruths or rumors and it costs people money because they're chasing it, and then they add on to it, and that
makes sense.
It's an emperor has no clothes type situation before too long. So
if they were happy and then it stayed there and it didn't go any further, that'd be great. But when you say those things and then it perpetuates, that's when it starts to become a problem.
Jonathan, did you say the emperor has no clothes or new clothes?
No clothes. The old Aesop fable. I'm not even sure it's Aesop, but the fable where everyone's talking about new. No. Well, that might be a movie or something, but there's an old fable, and then it goes something like this. The emperor wasn't wearing any clothes.
Oh, okay.
People were afraid to say that you're not wearing any clothes, like you're naked. And because the next guy wouldn't say it, the next guy wouldn't say it. So everyone's just praising how wonderful his clothes are. And finally, a little boy says, you got no clothes on. You're not wearing anything. But nobody else had the courage to say that because they were all caught up in not wanting to be wrong.
I got you. Okay.
They didn't hear it.
Maybe I was thinking
like
a kid's audio talks about the emperor's new clothes. I'm like, man, where's this dude coming with no clothes? Where is that? I was trying to find I'm not fast enough. I saw a dangle on the dongle. I was gonna throw that up there. That would tie in with your There you go. The angle of the dangle is equally proportional to the heat of the beat. So maybe that goes with that. Maybe not. All right, man. We got some folks from Denmark. Good to see you, Eric. Cool, man. Got a couple super chats that came in. Let me hit those real quick. Mike, appreciate the Michael $2 super chat. Ever think about doing a theater tour in Raleigh? So I have done a theater tour in Raleigh when I went to Audio Advice Live last year. I didn't do it like a full tour. It was just a particular home, beautiful home, JBL system, GTZ 380 from Sony, beautiful image, massive room, 32 channels of speakers, really, really cool, done very well. I think there was like 12 or 13 seats in it. So, but yeah, so I haven't done a lot of like tours, in a specific area. Couple challenges there. Number one is just organizing that. When I did the tour in Kansas City, Jonathan said, "Hey, I'll line all these up and we'll take you around." And so that takes a lot of work to make that happen and just coordinate with people's schedules and do that over a 2 or 3 or 4 day period of time. So that's part of it. There's distance. Sometimes they're not really close. You may be driving an hour or 2 hours in between those. So definitely some challenges there. I'm open to it. But best thing to do is if you've got a cool home theater, just submit it on my website, hometheatertours.com. And then usually what I try to do, especially if they're out of state, is just try to find maybe a sponsor, somebody that like a brand that's represented in your home theater. And they'd be willing to fly me up there, and it gives them some exposure. And then it just, kind of covers me from being away from family for 3 or 4 days or however long I'm gone. So, but yeah, man, so I'm open to it for sure. I mean, I've gone overseas to as far as the Philippines to do a home theater tour. So Herbert, appreciate the $2 super chat there. Make sure, if you don't mind, guys, look back. I'm going to take a look. I don't see a question. So yeah, I just want to make sure I didn't miss that. I think I saw one more. Scroll down here. Here's where I love StreamYard if they'd put those together so we don't miss them. John, appreciate the $5 super chat. Hello, all. Here's to a great 2024. I'm excited about 2024. Got some cool things in the works. Today, I was even writing down some and even talking about with Jessica. We're trying to dream big. We're trying to even looking at homes today. And so don't know. Yeah, man. I mean, we've lived in our home now for 17 years. And so we didn't get the opportunity to, do a starter home. And then, I mean, we just kind of have a decent sized home because we had 4 kids. We were way beyond starter home back then with 4 children. And we raised our kids here. Most of them are, I say out of the house. Jacob's out of the house. He's married. My oldest daughter, she's living with us now till she gets married, which probably be in another year, maybe 2. She's got her career as a teacher, working with my wife. My middle daughter's studying nursing, so she's kind of at home sometimes on the weekends, but mainly at school in Gainesville. And then my youngest is graduating high school this year, probably be going off to college next year. So unless she lives at home and just travels, it just depends on what school she chooses. But thinking about possibly like building our like dream home, and a lot of the areas of our home is like wasted space and just things that Jessica would love to see just in the living room, and the kitchen is kind of crowded, just the way they designed our little bar. So she'd rather have like, what do they call that, Ryan? Island?
An island.
Yeah. So do like more of an island, open floor plan, and, things like that. Of course, she'd love a pool. She's been asking for a pool for 17 years and never done that. So I don't know. So we're just having fun right now. We're just looking, getting ideas and thinking and dreaming, and may happen in 2024, may happen in 2025, 26. I don't know. But yeah, so we're having some fun. Let's see. Got another super chat here. Tango, appreciate the 100. Is that Denmark? What's DKK?
I don't know what it stands for, but he's from Denmark.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It helps if I actually read it. Greetings from Denmark. I was just looking at the DKK. Hope everybody's doing great. Happy New Year to all. Please watch Armadillo. Armadillo?
Armadillo?
I haven't heard of that one. Armadillo. And tell me what you think. PTSD, suicide, number 22. Just lost a friend. Oh, wow.
That's
Armadillo.
a lot.
What in the world is that? Armadillo movie. Let's just see. Armadillos in 2020 or 2010. Danish soldiers are sent to Afghanistan in 2009 for 6 months to help stabilize the country against Taliban. They're stationed on Armadillo military base in Helmand Province. Unlike other war movies, this is the real deal. No actors. Man, got to put that on my list then. That sounds cool. I love war movies, especially when there's, they're trying to portray like what actually goes on. Appreciate that, man. Definitely. I'm going to add that to my list. Have y'all seen that?
No.
Nope. I've seen Restrepo, which I think is very similar to that.
Armadillo. All right. Let me put it in my notes so I don't forget. All right, cool. All right, let's get to some of your questions here. Did Santa show up with those swans, Ryan?
No.
Are they ordered?
Yes.
So he does have them on order, but
all the beryllium stuff is ordered. So it's
Santa going to need Santa may need to upgrade his sleigh, bro.
Santa may need a 26-foot box truck.
Does Santa have enough insurance for those? I mean, come on, man. That's a big deal, man. I mean, what if it rains on the way here?
That would be, I mean, you would think he'd be above the clouds, maybe.
You do have a chimney, right? But they're not going to fit in your chimney.
No, that would be rough.
You got some issues. You got to figure
leave him in the driveway.
Maybe do like the ring thing, and so when he comes to the door, you can just let him in.
I mean, I did have the RTJ 410s in the garage at one point.
True.
So that was going on.
We're excited, man. So, and kind of Ryan alluded earlier in the show, he's got some exciting things he's working on that he can't share yet. When will you be able to share, do you think?
I don't know yet.
I don't even know what it is. Okay. I mean,
I don't know
yet.
yet.
A couple months or
before that.
Okay.
Before that, I would assume, but
okay.
I just can't talk about it yet.
Maybe the next month or two, we'll hear some more updates from Ryan. Awesome, man. I'm excited for you.
I think it's projector related. I'm reading between the lines.
Ooh,
I don't know, but I think it is. Maybe. It came up during the NZ9 discussion.
Oh, I know you did. I know you did mention.
Did I do something? Did I have like a twinge or something come up?
No, that's when you said it, because Michael said the NZ9, you need it for that big screen, and then you were like, nope, something's in the works.
I'm looking at his eyes.
The bag.
Oh. I know you did mention there's a possibility of maybe moving to a Christie. So
maybe
I like, man.
Runco, start throwing off names.
Runco.
I think it's going to be Christie. Might be in the works, man. We'll find out. We'll let you know.
What other custom projectors do we have that we can try to see if we can get a Twitch going or something?
That's funny. It won't be Runco. I don't think so. That's funny. Michael says, is it necessary to manually switch on an AVR audio format mode? For example, switching from DTS to mode to Dolby surround mode. Your AVR should be able to handle that, or processor. I leave mine on, I think it's just Dolby, but if it's DTS, it'll switch to DTS. You don't have to manually tell it to do that. There's some up mixers that some people like to use. Like, let's say you want to up mix to Oro 3D or Oro 2D. You would have to manually select that. It's not gonna automatically do that for you. What do y'all usually run yours on? Just like your default?
Dolby surround for me 99% of the time.
Yeah. And then just let it decode.
Yeah, auto. Let it do its thing.
Yeah, auto is the correct answer, but it ends up being Dolby surround. There's not everything in UHD and world. It seems like it's Dolby Atmos or
yeah,
or DTS. It's usually those two, but it's maybe Dolby.
Hardeep says, a very Merry Christmas, a belated Christmas to all. Hope it was a turkey-packed, stocking-filled 172 dB day.
We'd be dead.
I think that's volcano eruption territory.
Wow, man. That would be scary, dude.
Or Scott Newby's room in a couple years.
Yeah, let's head in that direction.
Let's see what that 172 dB actually is. So 172 dB is very close to death of hearing tissue. And 194 is the loudest sound possible, supposedly.
Really? What does that mean? Like, how can you have the loudest sound possible? How do you can you limit sound?
Let me try and find this.
Measured.
Like, what happens
It's
if
probably measured?
What happens if a star explodes?
You get a little tiny blip in the sky, like a little twinkle.
Well, yeah, but what if you were next to it?
Like 1,000,000 years later.
I mean, you know, I mean, it's got to have a sound.
I don't know. I'm trying to look for different comparisons. One comparison showed a jet engine was 140. So
yeah,
Scott Newby's already past that.
Yeah,
I mean, he needs to start contracting with NASA for testing and stuff on the decibel scale.
John Lever says, guys, if I buy a 7706, so Marantz AV7706 processor, but only have 8 channels of amplifiers, can I still use it and add an amplifier down the road? Great question, brother. The cool thing about a processor or even an AVR that has pre-outs for each channel, you can use as little or as many of those as you want. So in your case, you're only going to use 8 of those channels. And then let's say down the road, you add 3 more speakers. So now you've got 11. Then you can just add an amplifier, like a 3-channel amplifier. So yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just utilizing those, because again, those aren't powered signals. Your AV7706 doesn't have a built-in amplifier. So you're adding external amplifier. Technically, you could have a monoblock amplifier for all 11 channels if you wanted to. So you could start off with 3 speakers and have 3 monoblock amplifiers. 5 years down the road, you add your 2 surrounds, add 2 more amplifiers. That's the extreme of it, but just to show you, you can add whatever combination of amplifiers you want to the 7706. Absolutely no problems there, man. Alex the Great, any ideas on best cost-effective way to deal with small home theater room? So he's got is AC and HVAC, making it quieter or cooler specifically. So small room, making the room cold with something like a split. What do they call a split?
Mini split
unit, mini split. Would that be a good solution? Maybe.
Yeah,
a lot of guys
one that's quiet enough.
Are they quiet though? In general,
some of them can be.
Yeah, I don't know.
Would you want it in the room with you? I don't know.
I think you would have to have it in the room with you.
Well, I just meant like, could you put it behind a screen? Could you depend on the room? If it was just one room, yeah, it would have to be in there. I mean,
it's a small room, he says, so it's not a real big room.
This isn't my wheelhouse, but inline boosters, he could boost the vent from the below in the basement to the HVAC, like the piping that goes to his room, basically. Put a booster in there and just put get more air in there.
Ryan says a ductless mini split he has runs in the mid to high 20 dBs. So that's possible.
Real quiet.
Yeah. Entirely possible.
Cool.
That would be what I would do. As far as other stuff, larger the opening, typically the less noise you have of it coming through the vents.
Yeah.
I try and stay away from like hard ducting. I prefer like insulated soft ducting in order to remove any potential rattle. But mini split is probably going to be your best option, a ductless mini split, if you can get one that's quiet enough.
So he's saying he's got a 12 by 14 room. So not a huge room. And so more than likely what's happening is all of his equipment's in the room. And so that's generating heat. Now you add 3 bodies, 4 bodies, 5 bodies, 6 bodies, and it definitely can heat up really quick. I know my room heats up pretty quick. So some reason back when I was a youth pastor, you get middle school boys in there and that joker gets like a little sauna and it gets funky. Them dudes, man.
I know that story too.
Alex, if you got like kids and teenagers, I could easily see how that room gets hot.
Yeah. I'm a little worried about that in my room.
What's that? Your room getting hot?
My room's going to be fully sealed. So a lot like what Ryan has. So I have vents and stuff that are dumping into it, but we'll just see. I can always add a mini split later. But the funkiness, keep holding that funkiness in, and I'm a little worried about that with my 13-year-old son.
Nice. Derek, let me come back to your super chat. Jonathan, how do you hook up the Behringer, that model number 31 band EQ? Because you mentioned that previously, possibly getting a big.
He bought it, I think, didn't he? And came in. So now he's asking how to hook it up. That's cool. Yeah. So here, I'm going to share my screen. We'll talk it through.
Awesome.
Tell me if you can see it. So he bought a 31 band graphic equalizer for 2 channels, right? So this would be like left and right. If you go to the back of it, you're going to have a XLR input or a TRS input. Depending on what your processor does right now, if you have an AVR that just has RCA outs, you're going to get an RCA to TRS. You can get those anywhere, Amazon, Monoprice, whatever. Just look up RCA to TRS. That's going to convert to basically analog to analog signal. And then that's going to be your input. And then your output down here, you're going to feed back to your amplifier. So if your amplifier's RCA, then basically you're going to need 4 adapters, 2 in, 2 out. If your stuff's all XLR right now, like if you're running processors, you're going to run your XLR from your left channel to this input, and then this XLR out to your amplifier. Same here for right. That's it. I mean, there's not much else to it. I wouldn't probably deal with this subwoofer. I'd just let your receiver do that, your processor do that. But you're going to run your left and right channels with that and have some fun experimenting. Come back and let us know which way you like the bands. If you're like me, you're going to like a little bit of a slope, kind of like a little smiley face EQ.
I like that. That looks cool, man. That'd be an interesting sound.
And we can talk about this stuff real quick. These are like signal level boosters. So if you want to turn the amplifier or the gain coming out of this thing up so that your amplifier gets more input gain, then this would be that. I'd probably just leave it at 0 for now. This would be low cut if you want to strip out, and you're probably not going to use this either unless you're using that sub output on this. But this would be like basically a low cut filter. So if you want to cut everything off below 50 hertz, it's going to use some sort of filter, probably a second order filter at 50 hertz. And then this high cut, if you wanted to cut something off that's really high, it's going to be like, hey, you want to cut it off at 15,000 hertz or something, you can put it there. So that's how it works. And these engage it. So this would be like your this is an IO meter, it looks like. So that engages this little IO meter here and here. Right. And this says in and out. So it's probably engaging these 3 dials with just 1 button to turn those on or off.
Okay.
If you're using a modern processor, you probably don't need any of this stuff. So I would just unplug, or you would just push those in. That'd be like a press button, and that light will turn off for the 2 audio ones. And you can leave the IO meters on, and then just have some fun, man. See what you like.
Nice. So essentially, you're just, instead of going like RCA to out of your processor or your AVR into an amplifier, this just needs to sit in between that. So it comes in there, gets processed, then comes out of that to your amplifier. And because they don't have RCA, you just may have to have an adapter. Now, if he has XLR on his, say, processor side and XLR on his amplifier, he could just use XLR out of the processor into that, out of that into the amplifier.
Correct. So, and you can get, if you can't find RCA to TRS, I have some on my desk. That's how I'm hooking up my JBL Studio monitors for my desktop speakers, is RCA to TRS. But if you have trouble finding them, you can always do RCA to XLR too. Monoprice sell those as well. So it's just your preference. Both of them are going to be 3 pins, and your RCAs are only 2. So they'll basically just kind of ground one of the pins out, which is standard fare. So there's not going to be any difference in sound between the 2, is what it amounts to. Just find which one's cheaper, which one is more accessible for you to buy.
And then Derek has a follow-up question about, will this control all the channels, AVM70? No, it will not.
Oh, if that was your hope, it won't. Correct.
It's only going to be done on a per channel basis. So in this case, 2 channels and potentially 1 sub. So you would need, I don't know, what's an AVM70 do? 16 channels, something like that. So you need 8 of these.
Yeah.
But he might not need. So this is kind of just to help establish.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if he wanted to use it on all of them, sure. But
and you could use this. Maybe you buy another one for your center channel if you enjoy what it's doing, and you buy one for your front 3. And then if you establish what you like, you can actually kind of just apply that with the manual EQ out of the processor.
Yeah.
Under graphic equalizer, there's maybe a 5 band or 7 band or 9 band, depending on what brand you have. Instead of 31 bands, it's less granular. But you can do the same sort of curve. So if you like a Harman curve, or if you like a smiley face EQ, you can figure out what you like with this and then apply more broadly with the AVR or processor.
Yeah.
Without buying a bunch of these things.
And Chris asked, that has individual LEDs for each one of those levels, right? The sliders.
The sliders
is that an LED or is that just like a red?
no, it's lit up. It's an
Okay.
LED, but it's not going to do like any IO meters or anything. The IO meters.
I think he's just saying like, are they individually lit?
Yes, certainly.
So, and is there an option on there maybe to turn those off on one of those buttons over there? Or no?
I don't think so.
I would doubt it because this is a pro audio piece.
Yeah, true. They don't
the reason
care.
they're lit is so that in pro audio on backstage and stuff, you can see them.
That makes sense. Yeah. Cool, man. Great question. Let me head back over here.
I got to figure out how to disable my screen share here. 1 second. Stop.
Down at the bottom.
There we go. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Got that one on check. Okay, here we go. So, hey, Ryan, are you guys allowed to sell the silver Marantz Cinema 40?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's European usually. It might be 240 volt, but probably not because I think it supports both.
They should support both. Usually they're auto switching. Would be my guess. I don't know. I can check real quick if I've got it on my price list. Let's find out.
Billy, just shoot him an email if you don't already have it. Where's it at? I got all my stuff moved around.
Slacking.
Oh, where's it at? Did I delete it?
Let's see. What is that? The Cinema
40? Yeah. Just shoot us an email. He can reply to it.
So
is there a silver option?
Yes. There is actually.
Cool.
They're different SKUs. So it's available on the Cinema 50 and the Cinema 40. Now, whether or not I can get it, I don't know, but I can see it. So that's positive, I guess. It is there. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Messfeld says, he'll be building an AV room in the next couple of years. Do you like app speakers in the ceiling? Or, maybe do you prefer speakers in the ceiling or on the side?
I think you meant Atmos.
Okay. So if you put Atmos on your sidewalls, they're not really going to be Atmos speakers. Yeah, especially on the sidewalls. I wouldn't do that. I'd recommend either do in ceiling, on ceiling. Some people do use height channels. They're not technically Atmos. That'd be more like an Oro 3 layout or like a DTSX. But yeah, if you can do in ceiling or on ceiling, like even mount your ceiling speakers like a bookshelf, or in my case, I got big JTR speakers mounted on the ceiling. They work out great.
Typically, you want to mount the speakers where they're supposed to be mounted based on the spec. So top speakers should be mounted. Top height speakers should be mounted typically above your front left, front right, rear left, rear right, voice of God. There's specific locations that you should put speakers based on whatever codec you're trying to decode. There can be more universal locations that can encompass multiple codecs more ideally. I don't necessarily worry about that. I just try and encompass whatever Dolby effectively tells you where to put them, and then DTS usually falls pretty closely into that. So as long as you're close to where that speaker should be, any move outside of the window is just going to compromise. It doesn't mean that it's not going to work. It just means that you're moving away from ideal.
John says he added an Avantage 2030, but it has no subwoofer crossover, only for the speakers. So if I power the hertz on the speakers lower than 80, will I get more bass? So you're not going, like in your AVR, you're not going to have a subwoofer crossover. Whatever you select, let's say you're looking at your crossover section in the AVR. It'll say like front, left, center, front, right, your surround, your Atmos, and you set crossovers for those. So depending on, let's just say if you set it for 80 hertz for your front speakers are going to receive content down to about 80 hertz. It's not like a solid brick wall cutoff, but it'll start sloping off below 80 hertz and it'll route all of those lower frequencies to your subwoofer. So you're not going to have an individual crossover for your subwoofer, other than there is a section in a lot of AVRs called LFE. And so that section does have a crossover. My recommendation is leave that pretty much all as high as it'll go. Like most of them are 120. That way you're not limiting the frequencies, the LFE frequencies. But yeah, so you're not going to have a specific crossover for the subwoofer. That's actually on the back of your subwoofer. But my recommendation is either use the crossover in your AVR or processor or your subwoofer, but don't use both because you'll get some funkiness going on.
You kind of want to use both in the sense that you want to turn your subwoofer crossover all the way to 120.
Sure. And that would be disabling that.
Yeah, but it doesn't, most of them don't tell you that.
But you don't want to do like 80 hertz on one and 80 hertz in the AVR. You'll get some funkiness going on there. Any other thoughts or advice on that? Did I understand that question correctly?
That's how I took it.
Okay. Cool. Great question, John. Corey says, Zadu 5000 or the R-Volution Player One?
I've not used either one of them.
I've got the R-Volution. The Zadu, I had the, oh man, I don't even remember the model number. It wasn't the 5000, so I'm not as familiar with that one.
You probably had the Zdu Z9X. No, you had one of their top ones.
I had their flagship, flagship.
My feeling of this, Corey, is that I prefer the R-Volution stuff more because of the direction that those guys are going. And because I'm not a huge fan of how slow the Zdu OS is to load movies from a NAS. It takes forever. So I'm not a huge fan of it. We use them for Mad VR all the time because I use a Z9X, which just fits in my kit that I carry everywhere because it's super small. But I'm not worried about cover art I'm loading things off a flash drive and just looking at file names.
Yeah.
So I use that all the time. But I like the R-Volution direction that those guys are going. And I can give you one at a really good price because I actually have 3 of them. So if you have a need for them, they need to go. So shoot us an email and we can make something happen.
Why do you have 3 of them? How?
It's a great question. I bought them when they came out. I don't know. Technically, I have 4 because there's one I think in my rack somewhere, but my rack's in pieces, so I don't really know where some of my stuff is right now. My basement looks like a bomb went off because there's just stuff everywhere. There's, thankfully a lot of the plywood and things are now mounted to the walls in there. I mean, I had 8,000 pounds of plywood in my garage.
Yeah.
So that's been progress, but there's just stuff everywhere right now. So I know where 3 of them are. I don't really know where the 4th one is. It's here somewhere.
Yeah, I had the Zdu Neo Alpha Signature Edition, so it was definitely one of their. I think it was about $3,000, I think, back then.
And this isn't me saying that it's a bad unit. I'm just comparing my experience with both. The Zdu will definitely get the job done. I just really like the direction and the feature progression that they've laid out for the R-Volution. I think they learned a lot from Zapiti. And the direction they're going with R-Volution, which they got rid of the team that was causing problems and then kind of revamped. And I really like the direction that they're going with that piece of kit. So I would do that if I were in your position.
So since I haven't seen either one of those, what do those do for you in regards to over the fact of like an NVIDIA Shield and Plex or
nothing?
Apple TV or something like that.
So the nice thing about them is you're not managing a Plex server. It's all in its own ecosystem, right? You're not having to run a server potentially on a different piece of hardware or on the Shield and it's running super slow. It's just kind of all built in. That's their thing. And like the R-Volution and a lot of the Zdus, not the Z9X, but that you can just throw 3.5-inch hard drives into them and turn them into a local storage.
Yeah. And some of them, like the Alpha that I had, it had some like the higher end DACs. If you're into DACs especially for music and 2-channel, had some features for that more than just like playback.
The upper end Z-Dos do have that. They've got some higher end DACs and components and terminals and things that they're marketed towards more of the audiophile crowd.
Yeah.
They're really pretty. They weigh a lot. They're
it's
really
definitely
pretty
a
units.
well-built unit versus, I mean, like I got the NVIDIA Shield and it's, piece of plastic versus you got a legit piece of hardware in your rack. So if that means something to you as far as build quality, it definitely, they don't compare there. But as far as like sound, video, I'm not sure. You'd have to do some blind tests to see if you could hear a difference and see a difference.
I'm going to say no.
Has Audio Science reviewed them out of curiosity?
I do not know.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Mr. Music says he has a MK750 THX, wondering if I need an amp to drive these speakers. He's got a Marantz 7011, which sounds a bit strained at higher volume. And how do you boost the subwoofer on the Marantz? So a couple questions here. So MK570, let's see what the sensitivity is.
Mr. Music, if you're still here, how spirited do you listen and what do you consider high volume? Because that's subjective.
70 speakers. See if I can find it.
I don't even see that. Like
I don't either.
Speaker.
There's an I think it here.
No, this isn't it. They've got a couple things called the 750.
Yeah. Did I type it in wrong? Maybe I did 570. Oh, that's one. Try 750. I'm dyslexic today. Here we go. LCR 750. See that. Let me take a look at that. If that's what you've got. Let us know if you've got that.
I'm looking. Yeah, that's the only 750 I see here.
Yeah, so the specs on that one.
But in the product description for the LCR 750, it makes some reference to a THX family. So maybe the THX is like a older speaker. Okay. Maybe.
So if this is what you have, let us know if this is it. This is an LCR 750 speaker from M&K. So the sensitivity on this, and most of the time, most manufacturers have a pretty consistent sensitivity, at least pretty close. So you're at 90 dB with 2.83 volts at 1 meter. So that's a decently, I don't know, to me, I don't classify 90 dB as being like super sensitive. If it was like 95, 98, or even 100 or more, that would be really sensitive. So you're definitely going to benefit, to me, if you were to have an external amplifier powering this. Now, he's a lot better kind of calculating, if you're sitting 14 foot from this, how much wattage you're going to need for that.
How much power do they handle? Like that's
what I was just looking at. That's kind of interesting. Only 80 watts. But then up here, it's got 150. So.
But even 150 isn't all that much.
No.
You're not going to benefit from an external amp if that's truly.
Okay, so take a look at this, Jonathan. So we've got a 1-inch silk-coated dome tweeter, and then we've got 2 5.25 drivers. So that's partially why it can't handle a lot of power.
So how much does a 7011 put out? Let's say it's 100 watts. I don't know if it is or not without looking it up, but let's say it's 100 watts.
Marantz.
So if you went from 100 to 150 watts, you're only getting 1.5 dB. So take your loudest that your amplifier can get and add 1.5 dB more, and that's before your speaker starts.
But you're also calculating that probably on 2 channels driven, not all channels driven on that 7011.
I'm looking it up now.
I mean, you're probably closer to like 40 or 50 watts on that 7011 maximum output, all channels driven.
70%.
7-channel amplifier or AVR. And really, where's the? I guess because it's older, it doesn't have. All right, let me look at their owner's manual. No, here we go, spec sheet. So it's a different. I got to download the document.
It says 125 watts by 2 channels.
You see it? Okay.
And it says it does support 4 ohm. So if you do, Marantz and Denon have long had the 70% standard. So 70% of 125 would be like 100-ish, something like that. 25
I think it's going to be like 80.
70 equals 85. 84. So, it's still the same situation. 85 to 100.
It doesn't really change much, does it?
Is at most like 3 dB more. So again, as loud as you can do it on the AVR without distortion, you get 3 clicks more on your volume knob before you start damaging the speaker or risking damaging the speaker. If you think you want a lot more than you got, it might be time to change out your speakers.
Got to move away from those soft ohms.
And how do you boost the subwoofer on the Marantz? All of them have like a subwoofer trim. If you go into the speaker channel levels, just go to your manual and look up subwoofer adjust, and you'll find it like a subwoofer. I'll tell you specifically if I pull the manual up.
If you go in the audio, go in the audio section, go to your Odyssey and tell it you want to do manual. And when you go to manual, then it's going to give you options for things like crossovers. Look for levels, and when you get to levels, then you'll see each one of your left, center, right, surrounds, Atmos, and then all the way down at the bottom, you'll see subwoofer, and then you can increase or decrease that volume level, or that we call it trim levels in the AVR. Oh, good question, man. Grave Danger. What should I buy first? I like these types of questions. What should I buy first to start building a theater? I really need to just upgrade everything, and I really want to crank it. So if he wants to crank it, where does he begin? Like when you're building a home theater, maybe he's got an older setup. Maybe he just doesn't have, maybe he's had a budget set up to start off with. And he wants to really make some upgrades. Would you recommend starting? And he wants to crank it. He likes it loud.
Speakers and subs. Or the room.
Come on, man. You gotta pick one. You can't be giving him 30 things. He asked for
Well, I don't know. That would be dependent on the gear that he already has. I mean,
not his budget and like his preferences and listing and everything. This is an impossible question.
Oh,
Grave Danger, if you're here, let us know. I'm gonna say speakers and subs.
Yeah. Because really, if his speakers are let's just say lackluster, if they're not capable, adding an amplifier isn't going to help him. Upgrading his processor or his AVR isn't really going to help him.
Nope.
So,
you ought to look, Grave Danger, since you're saying you really love to crank it. Are you budget oriented or are you no holds barred? If you're budget oriented, start looking at some pro audio stuff, because the price of entry to get some system that can really crank on is like $200 or $300. I mean, so that's what it costs.
He has Klipsch 5s right now. So Klipsch 5s are a two-way bookshelf speaker. It's active. They're more like Bluetooth speakers. So he's got a 2-channel setup.
That's not going to be able to be cranked on.
But that's what he's saying. That's what he has now. So what can he do to expand that, to get something really great?
Like, if you have a guitar center or a musician's friend in your town, they have little like listening stations, and you can go in and you can just push buttons, kind of like Best Buy has with car audio. You can push buttons and cycle through the different pro audio speakers. You can get a sense of what you like the sound of. That's pretty fun, even for somebody that's like experienced with us. I like doing that kind of thing.
So
go in there and listen.
He said he's got a budget of $10,000
for everything.
Well, that's dependent. Danger. I'm going to ask another question. How many speakers are you wanting?
Yeah. Are we talking 5, 7, 11? Yeah.
And if you're doing 5, that's very different than 7 or 9 or.
I mean, is this kind of like a really long conversation? Probably. I mean, honestly. So probably, honestly, the best thing, I would just reach out, send Ryan an email, shoot him one at midwestavexperience.com/sales, because as you see, there's going to be a lot of questions on this. He said he's looking for a 5.2.4. So $10,000. He's wanting 9 speakers and 2 subwoofers and an AVR, and he wants to crank it like crazy.
You can do it.
You can do it.
Well, we heard that SVS system at M-Wave.
Yeah.
And that was,
but it depends on what your definition of cranking it is, though.
Yeah.
Because the SVS ain't going to be able to do what Jonathan and I consider, and you consider cranking it. You're going to need compression drivers or some type of pro audio to be able to do it, or some type of
But to be fair, if we take ourselves out of what we know and love, rewind 20 years for all of us. Cranking it was the SBS system. Like, this is awesome.
I'm just trying to say this objectively. Like, what does he mean? Like, if he means that, then yeah, that would work. But if he means I want to hit reference and I want to hit it with no distortion, then that's a different topic.
I mean, I'm looking at, I don't even know what the current price is on it. Actually, he probably could do that. You might be able. All right. So if he likes the sound of Klipsch, okay, I'm just going to go that direction. The Klipsch RP, basically the reference Premier system, they're definitely capable of cranking it. I mean, you'll get plenty of volume out of that because they're really sensitive. I think they're probably 96 dB sensitivity. Some people will say that they're not quite that sensitive, even if they're not. Even if they're 95, that's still pretty stinking loud. Andrew even mentioned secondhand market. You'll definitely get, a lot more bang for your buck. There's definitely a lot of different directions you can go. Kind of based on what we were talking about earlier. If you want to really crank it, you might not want to go the direction of like a soft dome tweeter.
Jonathan, you don't approve of Klipsch?
Not if you're going to spend 10 grand. I don't.
Okay, I don't either.
That's okay, but you don't have to be right. I mean, it's okay for you to be wrong. That's what I meant to say.
I don't have to choose what he goes with, but I wouldn't go with it.
Yeah.
I had to get rid of him.
I can prove that.
You've been demoted.
I got rid of you for a minute.
Do what you want, man. I've owned over 50 pairs of Klipsch speakers. I actually appreciate
Doesn't mean you're right. It's a subjective opinion. That doesn't mean anything.
And again, I mean, that's why I just continue to share with you. Try to hear, just like Jonathan said, go listen to as many different speakers as you possibly can. One great way to do that is come to M-Wave. We've got a bunch of different brands that'll be there. You can go to each room, hear what, from budget stuff to really expensive stuff. And even the expensive stuff, that may be, you may hear it and go, holy cow, this is my in-game speaker. May not be able to afford it now, but maybe 10 years you can. Or maybe down the road, you find some used Perlisons or Martin Logans or whatever. So that's a great way to do it. But yeah.
Klipsch. So to back up about the whole Klipsch thing, it's not that I'm an elitist and find like Klipsch price point is no. It's just that I don't like how Klipsch sound.
Right. That's and you never have. And I always have. And so
there's plenty of brands that I would do in that price point. So don't think that this is like me saying, stay away from whatever. It's just that I don't like the way the Klipsch sound.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm getting a lot of hate from one guy in the comments.
They're busting your chops, buddy.
Well, here's the deal. So to me, clips, if you got like $2,000 to $4,000 to spend, you can go on Slick Deals. You can go to one of those Adorama deals. You can get a Onkyo or a Pioneer receiver with a whole pile of clip speakers, like 5 or 7 speakers, and
those are from there.
Well, are they?
Yeah, they're not that great.
Well, I mean,
I don't personally like what they call. Here's the interesting thing. A long time ago, let's say 17 years ago, when I got into building my theater, Klipsch had a series called Reference. And they were their reference speaker. They were very quality, nice build. A lot of those had larger compression drivers, speakers. They had real wood veneer. Down the road, let's just say 6-7 years ago, they came out with a new, and they even called it the new Reference. And I always do this because to me, there was nothing reference about it. It was almost like a rebranded entry level, what they called their Synergy series. And so they were taking their cheapest one that was at Best Buy on the end caps. They don't sound real great. Yeah, they're budget friendly, but they didn't sound that great. And then they called that Reference. And that's the vast majority of what people base their opinion off, is they're like, oh, I went in Best Buy one day, I heard them and they're trash. And you're right. They don't sound that great. They're not in a great environment. They're not really great components. But I do like their higher end, even their mid-tier, what I call the mid-tier, the Reference Premier. I really like that. I really like what they did with adding the soft horn. So it's a rubber horn. So it didn't have the resonances that some of the older drivers had in that top end. Those dang tricksters at Clips.
We should do a blind comparison with his speakers with a rubber horn and with aluminum horn and with a wooden horn, and see if Michael can detect the difference in that.
I'm not saying I can. Oh God!
I would love to see. I would pay money to see that.
I think there's going to be a room at M-Wave.
Yeah, that'd be terrible. Youthman hates Clips. He's like, he listened to 7 speakers, and Clips was the very bottom. He loved all these other ones, but Clips did not get the vote in a blind test. That's hilarious. That'd be fun though. That'd be scary, but that'd be fun. Yeah.
I don't have all the experience with Clips that you do, Michael.
Tito, he's not going to be able to get into that price. Like at a $10,000 price point, you're not getting that with JTR. Not even close.
No.
Even the used market.
Things add up very, very fast.
What were you saying, Jonathan?
Well, I was saying I don't have all the experience with Clips that you have, but I have heard a lot of different Clip speakers, just not compared a lot of different Clip speakers. So I've even heard up to the Palladiums. Is that how you say their top line?
Yeah, I didn't care for those.
I didn't either. Those are super expensive and super pretty, but they crapped out before reference easily. Like
I didn't like them.
4 or 5 dB below reference. They started sounding like 10-filled box. So to me, in my mind, I haven't heard like the heresies or what's the top of the line when everyone always talks about from the 70s. It starts with
Heritage.
The
Heritages.
The big boys.
So that's what everyone always like. That's their premier one, right? That's what everyone had their claim to fame.
Those were at Audio Advice 2022, right?
They have a bunch of different models. They've got the Cornwalls, the choruses, the Fortes, and they're just different sizes. And then of course you got the big Clips horns. Then you got the Jubilees, which is their more cinema series, like what they would put in an actual.
Oh, it's the Jubilees I was thinking of.
Yeah, they're massive. They're these guys. See, these guys know their stuff.
You need a $15,000
Clips discussion.
Need a $15,000 room at M-Wave. I think the SVS room was pretty close.
Yeah, it was less than 10, I think, wasn't it?
I think they said all inclusive was probably about 7-ish, and that's why I mentioned that. I mean, it's a good system. Most people are going to hook that up and go, dude, this is phenomenal.
It was Prime, right?
It was a great sound.
It was the Primes.
They did the Prime Pinnacles with the SVS Ultra Center.
Yeah.
And then I think they had the PB16s, 2 of them, I believe. So, but yeah, man. Yeah, the Heritage line is great, especially for home theater. Man, I ran 3 La Scalas in my system. Phenomenal. Really, really great sound. They don't have any bottom end at all. So, Grave Danger says, I'm the SVS room. Not sure what that means.
He's just talking about that, like his budget is the SVS room.
Oh, yeah.
Then SVS may be the way to go. I mean,
at least go hear them. And you're either going to like them or you're not going to like them. You may listen to them and go, they're not that great. You may listen to them and go, dude, this is awesome. You know, if you can find a place that has SVS for demo, would be great. Let us know where you're at, like area wise, and you may
Best
find
Buy probably has SVS, don't they?
Who?
Best Buy.
I don't know if they cared or not. I know the Nebraska Furniture Mart. I think they carry SVS.
I have access to SVS, but I can't help you with a demo.
Oh, he said he was at M-Wave this year.
Oh,
so he heard the SVS room. So did you?
It's a great room.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Grave Danger, did you like the SVS room?
Yeah, just let us know. Best Buy does carry SVS, Chris says. Mia says Best Buy carries SVS. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
So that'd be a good place to go demo. Not ideally set up, but it would give you.
He likes SVS. He liked the sound. It's in his budget. Might be a good option. So, is there any other things that he could consider? I would at least consider the Reference Premier from Klipsch. I think it's a great system.
With that many speakers and the need for subs,
because he can't get into the new Martin Logans for that. Maybe the smaller F series.
The F series.
I'm just saying the F200s would be too expensive.
He wants a projector as part of that budget too, fellas.
Oh my gosh, bro, you might have to look at Monoprice.
I saw just today the Audioholics reviews the Monoprice 13 subwoofer that's $300. It's a 15-inch. Oh, sorry, Monoprice 15. and it got really good reviews. It met their highest criteria. It's $300. How's that?
Yeah. Oprah Winfrey, I don't think he's going to be able to get Arndal for that.
No.
I mean, he's looking at 9 speakers.
And 2 subs.
Right.
And a receiver and a projector.
I think you can do it.
You can do it, but we're restricting options here.
You can go to like HSU
and
get their coax 8s that'll be reference capable, like truly reference capable.
But how much are those?
They have home theater packages, and that's probably not more than like, what do you say, Michael? It's $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 for a home theater package from HSU?
Yeah, but then he needs a receiver, then he needs a screen, then he needs a projector.
He needs 6 theater seats and a ceiling fan.
You add some of this stuff over time, right?
And a mini split.
He needs to upgrade everything, but he's got stuff, right?
Yeah.
You do it over time.
Yeah. Like, and I've always encouraged you to do that. Enjoy the journey, man. You don't have to do this thing all at one buy. Build it over time. But my encouragement is, yes, you need to have a budget in mind, but be careful if you're having to cut corners to fit within that budget. I would much rather use what you have, maybe get a solid 3.1.
That was going to be my suggestion.
Upgrade the front 3 speakers, get a good center channel, get a good, some towers, get a good quality subwoofer, and enjoy it. Because I had a JTR LCR, my subwoofers up front, but then I was running Klipsch surrounds, Klipsch Atmos speakers. It was fine. And I ran that for quite a long time, probably almost 2 years. And so you don't have to do this all at one go. Use what you have. You might even be able to take your front speakers and use them as surrounds for a little bit, because maybe they're more, better than your surrounds. There's a lot of ways that you can go with this, but
yeah,
I agree. I mean, if you can build it over time, do that, man. You'll have more fun anyway.
Michael brings up a good point in that try and do this over time, because what happens to a lot of people is they're like, I'm going to build this on the budget. Then they end up eventually replacing everything. And I think it's better to do something, spend it, and then not have to replace it. You're going to have a better overall potential experience, especially on subs, and display, than skimping out.
So Ryan asked a question. It ties in with this. He says, so if it's a good quality sub, wouldn't you want to, I think he means skimp on towers, tends not to be the best spots for the lower bass anyway. So I'm just a big fan of tower speakers, like larger speakers. You can get a good sound with, say, bookshelf speakers and subwoofers. I still like bigger towers. So, and maybe that's just me.
I agree with Bruce. I put it up there because he's been PMing me on AVS for him. He's doing it a great way. He found some pro cinema JBLs, like what they would use in a small cinema. Nickels on a dollar type price range, because they're used. And you could put a killer home theater together if you're willing to like take some time and research and get some of that used pro cinema stuff.
Yeah.
And it'd be way under budget, because those things just go for nothing on the used market.
Yeah, the used market, it's hard to beat. Now, with the used market, you're going to deal with things like, seeing an ad. You're going to have to travel sometimes. You're going to go check out stuff. Trust me, I did a ton of this the first probably 12 years I was in this home. I would drive to somebody's house, and even though I requested photos and everything, I thought I knew what I was getting into, and I get there and there's like woofers are dented and dinged up, and there's gouges in the cabinets, and you deal with some of those issues, but you can save a ton of stinking money in the used market. So definitely nothing wrong with that avenue. Just know what you're getting, do your research, put aside some money, and continually be looking, because the Youthman deals are out there, but they're going to go quick. So if they list them and it's a really, really great price, no matter what brand it is, it's going to be gone quick. So you got to be willing to jump on that. Cool. Well, that was a lot, but hopefully that was helpful to not only just you, but even others that are considering doing the same thing.
I'm not starring anymore.
Okay. Jay Travels, I was planning on getting an NZ8. My question is, does it run loud?
I don't think it runs loud than any other projector. Louder.
So the reality, he says he's going to put it in a hush box, so it wouldn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
So it could be a a wind tunnel.
Do you hear your projector in your room, Michael, behind that glass?
I don't have glass. It's an open window. It's literally a hole in my wall.
And you don't hear it at all?
Never hear it.
That's cool.
Now, if I was, let's say, for instance, if it was dead quiet, I might hear it. Or like when I first turn it on, sure, I hear it boot up. But literally, as soon as I turn on my PS5 and start playing a video game, or as soon as I fire up a movie, you never hear that.
Mine was right above my head, and it didn't bother me.
Now, when I had the Panasonic and I had the Epson directly above me, I did hear that. So, and again, it depends on the content if you're watching a dynamic scene, you'll never hear it. But if it's a real, like a quiet place, you'd probably be able to hear it if it's directly above you. So things like that. So, but yeah, if you're putting it in a hush box, Jay Travels, you're good to go, buddy. That's the best way to do it. Not only are you going to eliminate the sound from the room, sound from the room, but you're going to eliminate the heat from the room too. And projectors can put off a ton of heat. Hemu says, PK Hemu, Jonathan, Crown or QSC power amp for the home theater use. Also, we be able to hear distortion with PA amps if we aren't listening at reference levels.
You're not going to hear distortion with them. If you walk up to the speaker with a very sensitive speaker, you might hear a little bit of static feedback from a PA amp compared to like something with a much higher synad, but you're not going to hear distortion. And not from the seats. Let me put it that way.
Depends on the speaker.
I don't think
depends
so.
on the
I think it's above. Generally speaking, Crown and QSC are above our human threshold. So the synad scores are going to be 75 to 85 type range for this.
I'm saying in like on a quiet room with the volume knob turned up a little bit, you're probably going to hear the speakers.
The hiss effectively?
Yes. Not when
it depends on the sensitivity of your speakers.
Yeah, not when things are on. No. I'm just saying like the noise floor. Yes, because I heard it in mine, and that was the reason that I changed to Buckeye, or one of the reasons.
Well, okay, there's a lot of things to unpack there, and one would be just simply making sure that you have the grounding set up correctly, because if I don't have my grounding straps hooked up to all my chassis, my room sounds like a flipping helicopter with the ground noise. I mean, it's so loud, it's insane. But what I had to do is wire all the chassis from all my gear together. So take one screw out of the chassis and run a little ground wire between every piece of gear. Would I have to do that if I had the top of the line amp, like a bunch of benchmark amps? I don't know. Maybe not.
I think part of the problem with that though is that Denon and Marantz don't ground their gear.
Yeah, we learned that with your Storm and Trinov.
They don't have a grounding pin, but the Storm and Trinov do. And they don't really have the problem
thing. Correct. Yeah. Okay. So there's a little bit more there before we move on. Crowns are great, in my opinion, for amplifiers for highs, but anything with a crown that has a DSP has a built-in HPF filter on it below 20 hertz. It's undefeatable. You can't get around.
Does too.
Maybe
on like at least the CX that I have, they do.
I asked about that in multiple forums and I haven't got a consistent answer on it yet, but the Crowns certainly do. And some of the QSCs seem to, but it's not, I don't know for sure 100% on that. And if you are listening, the reason you would buy these is you are listening at reference levels. If you're not listening at reference levels, you probably don't need 500 watts or 1,000 watts or whatever you're getting out of these Crowns and QSC power amps.
So like most of the QSC amps, their frequency response is 20 hertz to 20,000. So there's something there. And I've had problems with them on like subs and things pushing down. They have a massive fall off around that point. Jonathan's looking.
I'm just reading comments.
Yeah, I was about to reply to some of them where you are on that.
Did we get his question answered? I think we did.
I think so.
Okay. Benny, what's up, buddy? He said, hey, guys, looking for a shallow 18-inch BTS subwoofer. The only thing I can find is a flat pack GSG BTS kit that's 17 inches deep. Any recommendations? Any input? How these will sound? Don't want a 3 to 4 foot false wall.
So the BTS is behind the screen, and it's meant by GCS Audio to be a thin, so you can put them behind a false wall without having such a deep false wall. It won't sound any different. The cubic volume of the subwoofer of the cabinet is what matters. So if you have
be tall,
like 3 foot of cubic airspace whether it's horizontally spaced or whether it's, you know, deep, it won't matter. The difference is the volume. As long as it's the same volume, it doesn't make a difference on the sound. As far as shallow boxes, 17 inches is pretty shallow for 18 inch. Mine are 21 inches deep. I think a driver wood is about 12 inches deep on an 18, maybe 10 if you get depending on the basket. And you got to have a little bit of space for the pull vent to breathe at the back if you're doing sealed. Yeah, you're fine. Those BTS kits from GSG Audio is they're good options.
Vet Sweetnos says, I don't know what the first word is. Demoed. Okay. Demoed Martin Logan. Okay, so you demoed the Martin Logan F200 Towers. Sounds great, but didn't get to hear the C100. I went with Paradigm 100F and 90C. The 90C looks like a great center, and I love the 100F, which 3 or 5 channel amplifier. So it needs 3 to 5 channel amplifier. What would you recommend?
I'm gonna let Ryan answer that one. He's the Martin Logan guy.
He's the Buckeye guy.
Buckeye.
I knew it.
I mean, what else am I gonna say? I mean, I can't. You get so much for so little.
Yeah.
Do the NC5 252. Done. Get a 3-channel or a 5-channel, whatever you need, and 252 watts.
Need plenty of power. Riley
you have to hold it there for it to come up. Does it come up on anyone else's or just yours?
Just mine.
Oh.
That's it.
Yeah, you can't trigger it for me, Jonathan.
Riley says, son of a biscuit. I'm deciding in between a Marantz 70 Denon or Sony for my 5.1.2 setup. I don't know what the rest of that means.
FOMO. Fear missing out.
Faux freaking mo.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never seen the freaking in between the FOMO, so that threw me off. I thought it was some other initials or something.
Denon. There's no comparison.
What do you think?
Well, I still haven't seen any benchmarks on the newest Sony receivers, but traditionally, Sony receivers aren't really the cat's meow. You want to.
They've been getting a lot of praise on the new ones, but I'll be honest, I'm just still.
You can't compete with a company that's been doing this for so freaking long and has had that track record that they do.
Yeah.
Denon and Marantz are going to have virtually identical feature sets. You get the distortion chip on the Marantz, but I don't think that's really worth it at all. So I would save the money and go Denon. And 512 to have a little bit of headroom, I just do the 3800. Anybody else?
5.1.2, you wouldn't even need a 3800. You could go a lot lower potentially.
I know, but I'm saying headroom if you wanted to add speakers down the line or something. He's got the 2 extra amps. But yeah, you could do like a, what is it, the 2800? Yeah. But then the 2800, you don't get pre-outs and you don't have access to DIRAC like you do on the 3800.
Or 4 subwoofer outs, I think. You
Correct.
Start losing those too as you go down.
Yep. So I do the 3800. They're saying the Audioholics did a review on the Sony and gave it good praise. I'll
have to read up on it and see. I haven't seen that yet.
It maybe, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that it's hard to compete with a company that never left the space and has been doing very well. The balloons. Somebody wanted to see the balloons. There you go.
They're even translucent.
Well, yeah. That's the green screen doing it.
Cool. Yeah, Audioholics. I know Gene's done some reviews on them. Andrew Robinson, he really likes them. I just haven't heard them, and like they said, just in the past, they haven't been that great. They've never been in the kind of the running, you know.
And they've got some cool features like the dual center channel. That's cool. I've never used it.
Yeah.
I think we answered it.
Yeah. All right, cool. Finster Tyler says, is the Epson LS12000 a major upgrade over the 6050? Jonathan, you've had both of those in your room, right?
No, I had the 5040 UB.
Okay.
I traditionally would recommend, Finster, that you skip a generation with projectors. So if you could wait till the subsequent of the LS12000, I think you'll get a bigger upgrade. That's not to say it wouldn't be an upgrade. It would, but it's probably, I'm going to suggest it's probably more minor than you'd expect. So the 5040 UB to the 12,000, I thought was a nice upgrade for a lot of reasons. It has full fade to black for one reason. That's a pretty big element. So if there's like where a screen changes and the camera turns off or whatever on the screen, it goes complete dark in the room. Whereas like the 5040 and 6050, they won't do that. You'll have that kind of gray background floor no matter what happens. Everything's a little bit better. It's got 4x E shift instead of 2x. It's got laser light uniformity, so you don't have any discoloration of different colors throughout the screen. It's got better HDR handling. It's got better motion. Like, everything's slight upgrades, but it's not going to be a major upgrade, I don't think, in most any category. So that's my advice, is to wait one more generation, probably if you already have the 6050. Unless you just like to upgrade all the time, which I don't think is the case, or you would have already done it.
If he has not bought yet, what would you buy?
Oh, well, in that case, the LS12000. So I'll couch it with this. I've seen a lot of 6050s. I've never had one in my room, and I've never left that. When I had my 5040 for years, I never upgraded to the 60 series or the 5050 series, as it were, because I didn't really think there was much difference. Like, going from my room to the next guy's room and looking at a 6050 or 5050, I couldn't tell the difference. Like, it seemed the same to me. I know there's supposed to be differences if you're side by side, but I couldn't see the difference. Going from the 5040 UB to LS12000 was a nice upgrade for me. So, would I feel the same way if I hadn't had it in my own room to compare? I don't know, but it was an upgrade for me. Like, it was worth the money for me to go from a 5040 to a LS12000.
So he says he already has the 6050, and I agree with everything that Jonathan said.
It'll be kind of more of a lateral move for him. Maybe wait another version or two.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily lateral. I just don't know that it'd be worth spending the extra money to do that. I don't think there's enough of a justification to justify the increase of spend, right? Yeah. And the 6050, you're not hurting by holding on to it. It's resale value because it's such a popular projector. All of those Epsons are. You can afford to wait. So I would just wait. I don't think.
Tyler's also he's one of my patrons. He's in Canada, so sometimes pricing up there is significantly more to get things. So
6050 is a solid projector.
It really is. It's a good option.
Michael, appreciate the $2 super chat. And then also Derek's got another super chat.
We already did that one.
Oh, we did that one. Okay.
Yep.
I just forgot to uncheck them. Q. All right. Ian says, do you turn the amp off for the left, right, center speakers off and just listen to the surround, Atmos, etc. speakers?
He's just saying for testing, I suppose, like just to hear what's happening in
different
channels.
I see.
I think it can be eye-opening for a lot of people to find out how little they do.
I've done that before. I've unplugged my left, center, and right because my amp is all power on or all off, but I've unplugged them just to hear. It's pretty cool sometimes. But like you said, sometimes you're like, dang, they missed a great opportunity. There should have been something going on up there, and there
should have been.
You know? So
yeah, I've definitely played around with that as well.
I think we all have.
ST Kelly says, hey, Jonathan, have you ever stumbled upon the Youthman channel, MFK Home Theater?
I know Monty. He's been over to my house. In fact, there's a video on my channel from Monty talking about the JBL CVTs in here. He came over because he wanted to hear these line arrays since he's been building his own. And he was favorably impressed.
Dude, his setup is
link in the theater.
It's a long process, but man, yeah, Monty's got, I forgot that was his channel. Yeah, he's got some, huge. These things are like 7 or 8 feet tall, man. Line arrays that he's building himself.
Yeah, he and Don Keel, actually, who's one of the inventors behind CBT technology. He and Don Keel were going to come over for a home theater demo on their way to a storm hunting thing in Kansas. And Don bailed out at the last minute. Unfortunately, he was going to try another time, but Monty came by. So that was fun. He was over here for a day with his significant other, and we had a good time.
Nice. That Sweetness. Which 3 or 5 channel amplifiers did I get? Did we kind of answer that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Here, I'm putting this in private chat.
You guys are trying to trick us, man. You're rephrasing your questions to make sure they get answered. Best pair of subs under 4,000. Rhythmic, Shoe, SVS, or others. So he's under $2,000 subwoofer, and he wants 2 of them.
Rhythmic's hard to beat.
What does this get you? What does a FV15H cost these days?
Less than that.
That's my favorite of them if it comes in under that price. And it does.
I want to see how much the
it's
VTF.
Like in black matte, it's black matte or black oak. It's $1,750 basically.
Yep.
Let me see. Okay, so so the VTF 15H Mark II that I just reviewed. Let me pull this one up.
He can get an F18 for under that.
Under that?
$1,849 per.
I mean, I'll be honest, man. If you can go with an 18 for under $2,000, I'd probably go that direction. I just like 18s, man. But yeah, this was a phenomenal subwoofer. You're talking about $1,400 each, so that definitely fit. So Shoe would be a great opportunity.
And Shoe has discounts on multiples. If you go on that website there, Michael, go to products.
There we go. Oh, the bundles. Yep.
Yeah, there's dual drive bundles.
ETF
at the top. I think.
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
Here. So here you go. Yeah, so you get them for $1,227 each. You did. Oh, that's like a pair.
Well, I think you got to go to dual drive bundles at the top under products.
Grave Danger brings up a good point.
Oh,
you can get 4 of those $300 mono price for $1,200.
Yeah. So scroll down a little bit more. You want probably the 15. Those guys.
There you go.
So $1,200 a piece. If you called him, Mr. Dr. Shoe, and asked him if he would sell you 4 of those would be pretty darn strong.
Call Dr. Shoe, say, hey, can I get a Youthman deal on these 4? Youthman said they rock. He might hook you up. He's a great dude, to be honest with you, man. I've had nothing but good interactions.
Is he coming to M-Wave?
I need to ask him. I talked to him before about it, and he said he'd think about it.
He needs to come.
Reach out to him again. Yeah,
he needs to do a room. It'd be worth it.
Yeah, because they've got speakers and subwoofers.
Yeah,
that'd be really cool.
That'd be a really good budget setup.
Super affordable, man. I would love to see it.
It sounds good. He's had a room at Expona before.
He needs to do it.
All right, let's reach out to him again. Let's see what else we got. How will the Void bass compare to Scott Newby's? Oh, dang.
Are you going for 150 dB?
I am not trying to compete with Scott.
It's calling you out, man.
I'm not trying to go down that pathway.
Weak sauce is what he says.
Not. I am weak.
Weak sauce.
Need to work out.
Eddie says, looking for surrounds. Currently have Arndal 1723S front stage. Can't afford their surrounds. Any advice on similar surrounding speakers for surrounds? Well, they have a soft dome tweeter. Something more affordable that has a similar sound. What would that be?
So more of a neutral sound. How much are their surrounds?
Individuals. It depends on what model. This S. There's and it depends on what series. So let's go with the 1961 series has been discontinued. So I'm just going to go 1723 THX speakers. The monitor, no, the bookshelf. Those are, oh my gosh, bye. You got to go through like 30 steps just to figure it out. So there's $1,700 a pair for bookshelves. So that makes sense.
So if he can't afford that, what would I do?
So So you're probably looking at $300 to $500 a piece. And don't you dare recommend clips. That'd be heretical for you.
Polk.
They have soft dome. You're right.
They do.
I reviewed some of their, and actually they sound really good too.
They do.
Polk Audio.
What about something like a Wharfdale Diamond?
No, that is different. They don't use a soft dome, dude.
They don't?
The ones that I did, I reviewed the R200s. It was like a pointy tweeter. Yeah, look at this. It's a funky tweeter. Sounds good, but I don't know if it's going to have the same sound. Watch this. I'll share my screen.
I'm looking at it right now.
Well, not everybody is, Chief.
Well, I don't care.
See how I give him smack because he's
puts me in my place.
Crapping on these clip speakers.
Ring radiator. I forgot. That's what they
really
use.
Different. Yeah.
It is very different.
Their older speakers did have soft dome. But those sound really good. I just don't know if they're going to sound. I guess the saving grace here is when you're using surrounds. Think about this. I had LCR speakers that were completely different than my surrounds. And it sounded great. I enjoyed it. Is it perfect? No, but it was good enough for me because our ears are faced forward. I got big ears, so they face probably more forward than most people. But they face forward. So why are you laughing, Jonathan?
Because you just said bigger than most people.
Yeah, they are. My sister used to pull on them, man, when I was a kid. That's why they're so big. That's my story. But the reality is we don't hear as precise from things coming from the side or from behind us or even above us. So a lot of times you can get away with having a kind of a mixed matched system if you need to do that and find something. So I think you're going to have, does that make sense? You know, I don't think it's as critical. I always definitely suggest getting an LCR from Identical series. If you can do an identical speaker up front, that'd be best. But the surrounds, Chris is recommending Polk because he's a fangirl.
Can you think of anything that would have that same finish that Arundel had?
NW says the KEF LS50. KEF LS. Oh, that did not work. KEF LS50.
Yeah.
That's a concentric driver. That's still going to have a completely different sound, though.
I don't know.
KEF's going to be probably quite a bit brighter than the Arundel.
I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
I brought it up a minute ago, and I think I'm leaning that way. Wharfdale Diamonds are a nice little neutral speaker. You can probably buy them used because they've been around for a lot of years, and you can probably get them for really cheap. They're not that expensive new. Looks like Sweetwater Crutchfield has them for like $300 for a pair on sale, 150 off. So they're normally $450 and they're on sale for $300.
And guys, we're not trying to like only pick any budget speaker. We're trying to pick something that may match the Arundels, which is going to be something more with a soft dome tweeter.
That's why I was saying soft dome.
Yeah.
These look like they've got. Yeah, that's a soft dome. Kind of a wood grain. It won't have the same finish.
They have different colors, of course. They have black, but they don't just have a flat black like a silk black, I guess I should say, like the Arundel.
Satin, yeah.
Yeah. But that's those are just a neutral sounding. They're not going to hit reference, and I don't know that you should expect them to if you're just looking for a little bookshelf, but they're a very neutral sounding speaker. My friend had some, and that's how I would put it.
All right.
Yeah. So I said KEF's more bright. Why not SVS stuff? Again, it's just going to be a different type of sound because they use a different tweeter. Chris says Focal has some soft dome tweeters.
They might work, but Focal historically is more bright.
Does SVS sell satin finish?
I don't know. I don't know. While you guys are looking at that, back to the subwoofer question on if I'm chasing Scott. I'm not chasing him, but I just looked at the specs for these subs, and I may be able to compete. So we'll see.
Do you want to compete? That's.
I don't know. I mean, why not? What did he hit?
148 higher.
So the 50 will do over 140. each one of the 32s specs say they'll do over 140 at above 32 hertz. And I have 2 of those, and then there's 6 21s, and the 21s will do it says the 21s will do 139 above 63. So I don't know. We'll see.
Jonathan, I'm sorry. I'm just now seeing.
Jonathan, didn't you say you only wanted to do an hour?
Yeah, my wife texted me and said that they were watching a I Love Lucy thing and not to worry about it.
Okay.
I'm going to drop this in the chat. This was from Monty's. Is this your channel? I don't even.
Yeah. Okay. There's just a video of Monty visiting my room and some RTA sleeps.
But long story short on that question is something with a soft dome.
Drop that in the chat. Yeah, and that was the direction I was going, because the tweeter is going to give you a lot of the direction of what that sound is going to be. So when you go from like beryllium to horn to soft dome to titanium, they're all going to have their own kind of unique characteristics. Corey says, Zadoo, we did that one.
Yep.
The thing that kind of stings a little bit on those recommendations, fellas, to me is I don't feel like anything we're talking about is an in-game speaker. So we're and he can't swing the Arundel, so we're recommending something that's still going to leave him wanting something more as if he pursues this hobby, like if it's something that's in his blood.
Well, and it goes back to what we said earlier. Sometimes, and I've done that, man, I promise you, I've done this way too many times. And every time I look back and I regret doing it. I wanted something, like there was something, maybe it was a receiver. Let's just say, man, I had my eyes on this receiver, but it was $500 above my budget. And I'm going, I just can't swing that. And so I ended up getting a less receiver, and I bought the daggum thing, and I went, oh crap, this stuff. And then maybe down the road, like a year later, oh, I want to add an amplifier. But guess what? The one that I bought doesn't have pre-out. So now I got to turn around and sell that. Lost money. Ended up buying what I wanted anyway. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times we just got to learn to be patient. You have to learn to sell some stuff that you don't need. Maybe you got stuff in your garage.
Liver.
Tool. No, I was about to say kidney. I would love to sell my left kidney. If anybody's looking for a left kidney,
yeah,
that does have. I try to provide full transparency on anything that I sell. It does have a tendency to produce kidney stones. So if you can deal with that, I can give you a good Youthman deal on it.
To a masochist, that could be a plus.
Just hit me up, man. But definitely, like Marv says, patience, and you can get the Youthman deal. There's some good deals out there.
Buy once, cry once.
Or like I said, just save up, sell some stuff that you're just not using. Or, I've always tried to tell my kids, it's only money. You can always make more. And I say that lightly, but but there's some truth behind that. You can always do some overtime. You can always do a part-time job for a very short period of time to save up for something. You can always do a garage sale. You can always flip some stuff on eBay. There's a lot of different ways that you can get $500 for the kidney. I'll be honest, Frank, hit me up, man. I'd do that. You send me $500, I'll give you my kidney. How about that? You got a deal. I can't believe we're doing this. Oh man. But I say that because literally even today I was dealing with kidney stones. So not much fun, fellas. Not much fun. But that's why I've got this instead of this. Because this little booger has a lot of caffeine. And apparently caffeine is it diuretic? Is that the word? Basically, it pulls all the liquid out of your body. It depletes it of it. And so that's the worst thing you can do for kidneys. So, yeah. Had my kidney stones last year. Yeah, I've had 2 surgeries. I passed a 5 millimeter before. Not fun, especially when you have to remove the stent by yourself.
All right, enough about kidney stones.
Where did we go with that, man?
I don't know where you went. You went somewhere, and we had to reel you back in.
That's because, man, I'm passionate, man. I'm feeling. I want to get rid of these things. My kidney's a stoner. That's hilarious. Let's kidney more AV. Hey, we went like 30 minutes on one answering question. I can go 30 seconds on my kidney stones. Come on, fellas. Cut me some slack here, man. And honestly, I even went to this, and then y'all went back to another question. So, what would be a good substitution for a C18 Focus when using ESL 9S? Not familiar with those.
C18 is an electrostatic center from Martin Logan. The ESL's 9s are the classics, which are going to be their entry-level I say entry-level, but it's their entry masterpiece level for their electrostatics. A good substitute. I mean, are you trying to spend less, Coilman, if you're still here? The C100 is really good, and Martin Logan voices all of their speakers based on the electrostatics, so the planar magnetic folded ribbon tweeter will match up with the C8 or with the ESL fairly well. Close enough that you shouldn't really have a problem. I personally have never been a huge fan of the smaller electrostatic centers, C18 included. Really, the only electrostatic center I like is the C34 Illusion, and it is much bigger, like enormous in comparison to the C18. So I'd say if you're trying to spend less, C100. If you want to spend way less, I've got the top center height that was mounted in my theater that's got some scratches and a couple holes on it. Still works great, but it's got some holes in it.
Couple?
Well, the side mounted, like it's got technically some holes, and then there's some.
Okay, it looks like it got shot with buckshot.
Yeah, a little bit, but it works great. So if that doesn't bother you, you could put some stuff over the side so you don't see it. Then you're gonna get a really good deal. A few $100, all good.
There you go. Ronstar TV. Hey guys, what's your thoughts on the 18-inch Dayton Ultimax? Good sub, right?
No idea.
I thought.
Yeah, it's the subs I have. The great subs,
bro. Why are you messing with me? Because I'm like, wait a minute, Jonathan.
I've had them since 2014. I love them. They're great subs. I don't have any desire to change them.
They'll rock your world, man.
Michael's head was like that meme with all of the.
I was so confused because, and the reason why I doubted myself on that, I doubted myself because earlier I'm like, yeah, you've had both of those projectors, right? And you're like, no, I had the 50-40, not the 60-50. I'm like, okay. Well, yeah, Jonathan's got those. No, he doesn't have those subs. Okay. I'll just shut my mouth and let these guys run it.
Yeah, they're good subs.
ST Kelly says, has anyone seen Godzilla -1?
That's Jonathan's favorite movie.
Oh my gosh.
There we go. And my rating was a 9 out of 10. It was amazing.
I'm so excited for it, but I wait for all of these movies to come out.
K-Scape.
Is that going to be your opening Void Theater movie?
Ooh, that could be a good one.
Yeah.
That could be a really good if it's out.
So
I got a lot of movies because K-Scape still keeps having all these sales. So I'm like, I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy that. And my wife's looking at me like, you don't even have one right now. I'm preparing.
Yeah, you got to get them while they're hot, man.
That would be a really good opening movie, though. It's supposed to be amazing. Okay. Jonathan's favorite, instant classic.
Nice. Ryan,
I just rewatched Shin Godzilla, so I'm all for
You're
it.
all caught up. Ryan, are you able to get the Eclipse RP 1400 subwoofer right now?
I just sent off an email, so I'm checking. Michael, send me an email if you're still here, and we will check. We will chat.
Stitch Godzilla -1 was fantastic. Tried about as hard as anyone could get Jonathan to go see it.
He texted me so many reviews and was like pinging me every day. You want to go see it today? You want to go see it today? You want to see it today? It's like
Jonathan just has a thing against lizards. They scare him.
Man.
So to everybody, to all of us, it's a kaiju movie. It's a big monster movie. To him, it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's hiding underneath his chair.
BJ Broderick currently running in-wall Focal 300 for his fronts, but they seem a little bright, which Focal can tend to be on the bright side.
Mm-hmm.
I've run ARC, and my room is acoustically treated, thinking of upgrading to KEF The 3160 reference THX. I can't demo them.
Those are good speakers.
Have y'all heard the Kef?
So I like Kef. I think they measure very well. They're just not a reference output speaker. Okay. So if you don't care about that, I think Kef is fantastic. But if you're trying to push that envelope, it's not going to happen. Granted, a lot of, I don't think the focals are going to get there either. They're not either. So, but Kefs are great.
As far as the sound, if it's too bright, the Kef might be a more laid back sound.
I wouldn't call it laid back, but
not as bright on the top end.
No.
Okay. Kevin Garner, hey gents, are any of you using the Apple TV 4K 2023? Is it worth it over the Roku Ultra? Thanks a million. Have a great New Year's.
And back to that Kef question, if you are looking for pricing, hit Michael and I up. We can help you.
Oh, you got them.
I think I have access to those.
Okay.
The in-walls specifically.
All right. I'll drop it here.
I use that 2023 Apple almost every day, and I like it a lot. There's a bug with it right now that's annoying me, though, that when we're playing spatial audio, it sometimes seems like it sort of locks, and so you got to reset it.
It's not just for me. Mine's locking up, too.
So the 2022 one I have, the previous model doesn't do that. So until they figure that out, I should be swapping them out. But it's a great device, and I have a Roku Ultra, and I prefer the Apple TV head and shoulders over the Roku.
I love the OSD. The whole GUI and on-screen experience is so polished with Apple. And the other cool thing, if you own multiple of them, like in multiple rooms of the house, you can actually sync them. So anytime you install an app on one, it goes to all of them.
Yeah,
which is nice.
The spatial audio experience from Apple Music is just killer. Like if you haven't played with that yet, you have to play with that. It's so fantastic. It's the main use of my theater for the last year and a half, probably.
He ain't kidding. He's actually the one that got us all on it.
Scott Lee, any of you heard the Monitor Audio Synergy theater speakers? I think I've only heard like one Monitor Audio. I don't think they were the Synergy series.
I have not heard those.
No, and that was a long time ago. You don't really hear much about Monitor Audio. So, Jonathan, have you heard them?
I don't recall, so that probably means no.
Yeah. Hyper Shadow. Curious what SPL you guys consider too loud.
135. That was too loud.
That was really loud. That was really loud. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
That was too loud.
Yeah.
Is he talking about direct bass correction? What's DBC?
That's the only thing I thought of.
D-weighted decibels, perhaps?
Yeah,
is that what he's talking about?
D-weighted dB.
Okay.
You can go really loud in bass. Everyone's going to have a little subjective opinion on this. I think mid-low 130s is where I'm comfortable, and anything over that gets uncomfortable to me. For bass.
Yeah.
For mains, I don't really want to go over reference, which is 105 dB C-weighted from the main listening position.
That in and of itself is really loud.
Yeah, I'm not a reference guy. I'm a little bit below. But
bass
on the subs,
mid 120s, high 120s, low 130s. That's fun. Like it's thrilling. It's engaging. It doesn't hurt your ears.
Yeah.
You go up to 140, your ears are ringing. I don't even like going higher than that. Like I went over to a couple guys that go up to the high 140 range. Penny Nike, Luke M the Man. They both hit almost 150 range, like newbies type the territory. It's too much for me. I personally don't enjoy that. I don't even want to be in the room with that personally. I understand other people like different things. That's all fine.
Yeah. 140 dB is a very nice one-time experience.
It is.
It's fun for sure. But where's some hearing protection? Chris says, here's something that has gnawed at me. A placebo effect type question. Increasingly, I've been wondering how noticeable is response time on a display? Asking as a gamer. Great question. How important is that? We talk about 120 hertz versus 60 hertz. Like, how
So the Epson is 40 millisecond. The LS12000 is 40 millisecond if you don't have the fast timing engaged, and it's like 18, 19 if you do. I can notice a difference and have noticed a difference on multiple occasions gaming in here with the projector if I forget to switch it over to fast. I can feel the difference between 20 and 40. There's a threshold there where you can't feel it. And I don't think it goes very low below 20 before that happens. Because the difference between gaming on my OLED, which is like 1 or 2 millisecond response, and gaming on the 20 when I have the fast mode engaged on the Epson is like pretty hard to tell the difference.
Yeah. So
if you get something like an old JVC with like 160, 170 milliseconds, holy smokes, that's terrible.
Yeah. So Tony came over to my house one day and we're calibrating my projector and hanging out, and he said, "Hey, you want to see something interesting?" And I said, "Sure." And so he said, "Watch my hand on the mouse, and then look at your projector." And it would do like this. So here's my projector up here. Here's the mouse. He would go whoop, whoop. He's like, "That's the amount of lag on your projector." I'm like, no wonder I suck at Call of Duty.
Oh,
I
that's
die like
horrible.
continually. And so, yeah, that was on my NX7. So,
but didn't you have a low latency mode that you could engage?
There might have been at that time, but I didn't know any better. I was just dying a lot.
Oh man!
No, now on the new one, I do have some settings on the NZ8, so I've kind of catered it to that. So, wow, 3 milliseconds if you're competitive gaming.
But that's on a monitor and OLEDs, and you're not going to get that out of a projector.
No, for sure. Tito says this question is for all three of you. You had to do it all over. What would you do differently starting your home theater space? I had to do it all over again. I know for me, the first thing would be to increase my room size. The size and shape of my room has caused me to make some compromises in the room itself, as far as mostly just speaker layout for my surrounds, side surrounds and rear surrounds. So those are not optimal. My on ceiling Atmos speakers are fine, LCR is fine, but the rear seats, they're not optimal because they're right up against the back wall. So I think that would be the place. I'm very pleased with what I have, equipment wise, speaker wise, subwoofer wise. So to me, it'd just be I want a bigger room. So what about you fellas? Do it all over again, which Ryan is doing. What would you do differently?
The room. Design the room as much as you can. The room has way more effects than people think it does. And it's very important, I think, to start from the foundation of the theater, not like the foundation of the house, but start from the foundation of the theater and build around it. If you can, you're just going to have a better result.
Dang, Bruce. I hope your wife doesn't watch the podcast.
Dang.
That's hard.
I think all of us have pretty supportive spouses.
Yeah.
We get heads shaken.
Yeah.
More.
It was Jessica's idea for me to have a dedicated theater room.
It was not my wife's idea.
But the reason I found out later was because she figured if I had a dedicated room, that meant that I would not have speakers anywhere else in the house.
Yeah, that's more like
you didn't for a while though.
Yeah, until she wanted furniture, and then I bought her furniture, and she let me put some speakers in the living room, and then there's a center channel, and now there's a subwoofer, and it's temporary, but what games
Ryan, you can start with the foundation of the house. That's not really feasible for a lot of people. I was trying to, and then they wanted too much money. So
I don't think that there's anything in my answer. I don't think that there's anything that I would like to take away per se. Maybe an odd end rabbit trail I followed, but that experience, we've talked about that before. Those things that you went through kind of developed your opinions and knowledge on equipment. So if you took it all away and you just started like at a point, you don't have any of that knowledge. You don't have any of that experience.
Yeah. But take that part away, like not worried about getting to the knowledge part. What would you do first if you were to do it again? What would be the most important thing that somebody that's getting into this should think about that had the most impact?
It's really hard to translate, but I'm with you guys in saying the room. Like I would, if I had no budget and unlimited money, I would basically build my home around a home theater room. Like I would have the tiered concrete pour. I would have the super tall ceilings. I would have the large space, the large cinema space. Like that's where you start if money's no object.
Yeah. The room matters more than people think.
For sure. Jay Travels, I'm planning on getting NZ8. I wanted to know if it runs. Oh, we did that one.
We did do that one.
Yeah. Kevin says, hey guys, would really appreciate some help. I have a Perion audio speakers, 2 SVS SB 4000 subs, crossovers at 80 hertz, and for some reason I keep getting some bass for dialogue. Can anyone help me fix this?
You shouldn't be getting bass for dialogue at an 80 hertz crossover.
Bass for dialogue?
Not unless you're watching Transformers or something with Optimus Prime.
Is he hearing dialogue from his
That's
sub?
what I'm assuming.
That's what he's saying.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, you shouldn't at all.
What content are you watching? We'll see if he answers.
I can't even think of what that would cause that really. Like what at 80 hertz you shouldn't hear it. Maybe 120, maybe 150 you might start hearing it.
Well, what if he has LFE plus main on?
That shouldn't matter because it would be sending LFE to both main and bass would be going to both subs and speakers, but he's talking about getting voices in the subs. I mean, that's something's wired wrong. I mean, is it something as simple as he's got something wired wrong? Like he's got, instead of subwoofer out, he's got it wired to the left and right.
Wouldn't that be something? I'd laugh, but we've all done dumb things like that. I consistently still do.
Kevin says watching movies. That's why I'm confused.
No, you shouldn't be getting that, man. Check your wiring.
Check your, Something's weird with that.
Oh, hang on a second. Let me switch here. Hulk, sorry, I just saw this $5 super chat. Appreciate it, brother. Hello, fellas. Would recommend an SVS Ultra setup if you had the money to maybe go a little bit higher. So if he has more than an SVS system would allow, would you recommend going with a different brand? That's kind of a loaded question.
How much are those?
Again, the Ultras, I haven't looked at them recently. SVS Ultra Tower. So the Ultra Towers right now, let's see, Crutchfield's running them for like $1,300 each. So if he's got a budget to go higher, so let's say $1,500 each or more, is there a better option?
I mean, the SVS Ultras are good speakers. I would say,
I mean, I like the F200s from Martin Logan, but
F200s are really good.
They're going to be quite a bit more.
Unless you buy my demo pair.
No, that could save you. I mean, they're fun. Like I said, I was willing to sell my Klipsch RF7s because I like the F200s better.
Yeah. That, or that gets you into, I mean, you can do a Sendo at that price point.
JTR. No.
Sendo for SVS Ultra hard price point?
The 6s are $1,400 each, and then the 10s, depending on how much more he's looking to spend, are $2,300.
He's talking about the little coaxial, not a tower.
What are you shaking your head for?
That's all I have to say about that.
They're not, the SVS aren't going to hit reference either.
I agree. I don't want coax as my main left, center, right. Coax personally.
I mean, yeah.
You're not getting coax for your left, center, right. You're getting swans.
Yes. Those coaxes do sound really good.
Why wouldn't you would not do a coaxial?
No.
Why?
Have you ever hooked your single 8s or slant 8s or your 10s up as LCR and tried it? I don't like it. That's all.
I guess what I was saying, what I'm thinking is, like, technically I have a coaxial, at least a driver in my LCRs. So how would that different than my?
No, you don't. You have woofers and you have a compression driver in your center.
No, there's a coaxial driver in that horn. It's a tweeter and a mid-range.
It's called a compression driver. Is it? It's not.
I'm pretty sure Jeff calls it a coaxial driver. JTR 212.
Look up the driver itself, BMS something or other, right?
Can you do that, man? It's called, he uses an ultra high-end coaxial compression driver fitted on a large wooden horn. So that's where I'm getting my information from.
But that's the 110, isn't it?
No, that's the 212. I know what I own.
How is that a coaxial?
But I'm not saying it's a concentric. It's just a coaxial. So that horn right there. So there are technically 1, 2, 3. There's 4 drivers in that, technically. So you got the 2 woofers, you got a tweeter, and you got a mid-range. MW says Youthman is correct. It's not just a tweeter.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Tarhoya says there is a coaxial and a non-coaxial version.
Didn't know that either.
So I don't have a problem with the 212 HDR by any stretch of the imagination. I like them, but when I'm saying coaxial, I'm talking like the big 8-inch or 10-inch coax. You know, like your single 8s, your slant 8s, that kind of stuff.
So so you're talking about like right here.
That's how I was defining the coax.
What I can tell you though is that the Ascendo sounds very different than that speaker. So I've put them right next to each other.
Well, I'd be curious to hear that.
It's not the same experience.
So HSUs, coax 8s, slant 8s, the Bama do-it-yourself 8 that a friend of ours has in Kansas City. I've heard all those things as LCRs.
Okay, interesting.
And it's not for me. The speakers are subjective, right? That's not for me.
Yeah. Well,
but I like the 212 HDR, so that's interesting. It's like
So I wonder how much difference that is, because here you're using a large woofer and like a tweeter, I'm assuming. And then the other one, you're kind of using a tweeter and a mid-range. I wonder if that's the difference.
I'd have to see how the JTRs are designed because I don't understand how that would work with. I have questions now. Tony, text me.
Oh, here, hang on a second. Give me a second. I will show you something real quick. Let's look at Youthman JTR headquarters. Let's go here and click. Let me turn off my volume. Let the little ad play. Really? Tampax commercial? What the heck? Why in the world? Yay. All right. Come on, man. And that's one of those non-skippable ones, too. Get your radiance, fellas. There we go. All right. Let's go here. Let me skip through, and I will show you. So past that. Past that. Past that. There's the big woofer. There we go. Okay, let me back up to right here. All right, let me share my screen. So let me stop sharing, share again. All right, so I've got a video on my channel called Factory Tour of JTR Headquarters. So this was the woofer, but right after this, that joke was heavy too, man. Look at the Youthman flexing. What y'all don't know is I was struggling. That joke was heavy, man. Trying to curl that way, it was just super awkward. But right after this, Jeff shows the component of the compression driver. Now this is, I think this was in the HT or 212 HTR. So that's the compression driver there. So there's a tweeter as well as a mid-range driver there. I think he even takes it apart. So maybe this will kind of help. So there you go. You can see kind of what that driver looks like. But that is a coaxial driver.
That's certainly not a traditional coaxial driver.
No. Why didn't I know this?
Don't know. Never asked. Yeah, so it's not just a tip. Now that in this video, he shares that video or that driver alone And this was at that time, I don't know what, 3 or 4 years ago. That driver, his cost was $900 for that driver. That's his physical cost. So some people wonder, man, I wish Jeff could make cheaper stuff. He could if he used cheaper components, but he doesn't use cheap components in these things. So, but yeah, that's the compression driver that I was talking about. And now you know, and knowing's half the battle.
But if you look up a traditional coax design speaker, it's not that. So
no.
there's some funny business happening with the naming, I think.
All right, let's look at a coaxial driver. Yeah. So typical coaxial driver, you're going to have a woofer and then maybe a tweeter on top of that.
I mean, the only thing you could see from the front of that was the phase plug. Like when you were, before he disassembled it. So that's not working in the same context of a coax where the waveguide is the woofer structure and it's like, looks like a speaker with a tweeter in the middle of it or something. Yeah. At least it's not physically the same, or it doesn't look the same.
Right. There's a bunch of comments in the chat. They're chiming in. Let me scroll down here. What did y'all say?
Nobody's providing an answer though.
Whatever.
No, they're just saying it is, but they're not giving an answer of why.
It's coax. It's not the norm.
Frank says it's a coax.
Hey, you got my reference,
means
Mike.
that drivers share the same center.
I'm talking about back in the 90s. Let's try to see. Okay. Coaxial for cramming more in a small space, not sound quality, in my opinion. Come to my house, man. Come to my house.
That depends. I mean, the Swans are coax, or well, they're compression drivers, but the 15-inch berylliums and a lot of the Ascendos are, and the JTRs, if those are truly coaxials, are fantastic speakers.
Yeah. So what about this? He says there's a difference between coaxial and dual concentric. Because I've heard KEF, like the Metas, those are concentric drivers, right?
Yes, but
is that different?
I don't know enough about it to argue the terms.
I feel like
splitting hairs here. I don't know.
I feel like Jeff's are more dual concentric than a coaxial, but I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
Yeah,
to be able to weigh one way or the other. I don't know. Yeah,
but bottom line, it does have high frequencies and it has mid-range frequencies. It's got both. It's not just a tweeter. So he's not trying to do, because this thing about it's a three-way design. You got two woofers, that's one. Then you got the mid-range, that's another, and then you got the tweeter, that's another. So, all right, got a few more questions here. We'll hit.
All right. Well, I'm curious now. So when you get your Ascendos, you'll have to set them out outside the room, because in my experience, like I say, there's 3 different rooms that and more than that when you count the JTRs in different rooms and multiple 2-channel listening setups with those single 8s type things. I think those coaxial speakers, as traditionally defined, not in the HTR that you're talking about, but as traditionally defined, all have a very distinct sound characteristic. It's very clear. It's very sharp. It's very clinical. And it's harsh to my ears, ears.
Okay.
And I don't like that harshness. I love the clarity of it, super clear. But it's edgy. It's a little bit sharp to my ears. And that's the part I'm not sure I like. So I want to see when Ryan gets his Ascendos, he's telling me they're a different beast. I want to see if that's the case in my ears or not.
Right. All right. Jeremiah says, what would be the biggest speaker you can run for a 7.2.4 setup using the Anthem 1140 with no external amps? For reference, bookshelf or tower sizes? I don't know.
The biggest
that's going to be hard. Yeah. It's like,
what sensitivity? That's your question.
Yeah. The biggest speaker, I don't think would be your determining factor, because you can have big speakers that are really inefficient, and the Anthem's going to run out of gas without an external amplification.
Look at the little kid in this picture using VR. That's awesome.
What's that?
Little kid using VR, isn't it?
I mean, technically, the biggest speaker he could probably run is like the Ascendo 80. Because you could run that at like the 50s efficiency is 101 dB with 1 watt. So you could run it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that question is missing the point.
Yeah,
as Michael said,
look up. I've got a video on my channel called something like, just look up Youthman sensitive or Youthman sensitivity. You should be able to find that video, but it talks about speaker sensitivity and what role that plays with an AVR. BM Ultimate One. Yes, I hope they improve the internal bracing. Okay, so he made a comment earlier that Klipsch is coming out with a new RF7 version 4. So I've owned the original version 1, the version 2. I even had the RF83, which kind of came in between, I think, 1 and 2. And then I upgraded to the version 3. About every 5 years, Klipsch has rebranded that and redesigned that speaker. Last time I talked to them, they had not done that. Like they had no plans of revising or updating the RF7 III, but he's just saying that I hope they improve the internal bracing, use better quality binding posts, and crossover parts. Parts quality really does matter when it comes to sound quality and phasing. So they've definitely been kind of not under the pressure, but they've caught some heat for using cheap parts, internally. So yeah, we'll see. Scott Lee, Storm versus Trenov. Why? Go.
Not without Ryan's permission.
Go ahead. I think it's worth it.
Is it time?
I think it's worth it to talk about.
Is it time? Guys, buckle your seatbelts.
I don't think it's that big of it.
No, especially when we had 2 different groups and both groups preferred a different one. That was silly.
Yeah.
Okay. For sure.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah. First off, my bias is that I don't like either one of them, but they did sound different.
When you say you don't like either one, you're specifically talking about the room EQ.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The outcome of the room EQ as configured. Now it's tailorable, and you could probably make it to something I like by just adjusting the curve. But as it was out of the box, as configured, I prefer just manual EQ or no EQ, personally speaking. Storm did some pretty impressive things with the room decay. And this is my biggest takeaway, because I've never really liked auto EQ, so that's nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
But Storm has this art function that's trying to help out the room decay and eliminate standing waves and so forth. And we measured it with the OmniMic graph. When it was engaged, it took away the clothing shake, it took away the hair shake, it took away the chest thump, it took away the pant leg flap, like the stuff that I enjoy because I'm a subwoofer enthusiast.
Sure.
Was dialed back. It was like, okay, so now I have a reckoning, because I like those feelings. I like that tactile feel. Correct. But I can tell on the graphs that it's probably more accurate because my room decay plot is smoother,
right,
with art on. So now the reckoning is like, do I like this and it's inaccurate? Is that okay? Should I be liking the thing that I don't like because it's more accurate? That was the curiosity to me. Storm did a more granular.
Go ahead. MW says this too, and I think it's important to reference this, that I don't think you're liking it or not liking it because it's less or more accurate. The problem is that all of these room EQs have massive issues with anything under 20 hertz. And that's where all of that's coming from. There's tons of energy down there and you're not getting it. So there's problems with that. And there's...
Yeah, but in the EQ software, it just wouldn't be able to EQ that.
So no, it disappears. It cuts it for unknown. Wow. I've had massive issues with this in my room. Like, I know my room is flat down to 8 or 9 hertz. And I can measure it with no room EQ on. I've done manual EQs of all of this, and it'll be nice and flat. I mean, Jonathan, Michael, you've seen my EQs. I've seen your guys' EQs. We all have EQs that can get well down into single digits flat with no problem. When you turn Dirac or art on top of that on, goes from like nice and smooth to it'll run like this, and then it'll just fall off a cliff, right? And it'll do that at like just under 20 hertz consistently, no matter what we do to try and fix it.
Pulls that off. Interesting.
I don't think that that's relevant to the music we were listening to, because I don't think there's a lot of content below 20 hertz on that music we're listening to. Think about like something like Curtain Shaker or something that's centered around 11 hertz, where it's very different feel than we're talking about. We are talking about stuff like Kraftwerk, where it's got low bass, but I'd be surprised if it's measured much below 20
I think
hertz.
a big part of that is impulse. I think Room EQ doesn't get the delay right enough to get that. And I think the subs are off just enough that they're potentially neutralizing each other.
So yeah, I mean, that's my observation that I would like to experiment more with, was just like, I liked the feel personally with EQ off from my subs, but the measurements showed that I should prefer it with it on, with the subs on the same sort of stuff. So that was my biggest takeaway. Again, you know, whether we like the EQ on or off, you can tailor it to whatever you want if you have that expertise or that preference. So to me, the Trinoff did less in the sense of it was less granular EQ for the main listening position, which meant it sounded better in the different seats in my room. So as I sat in the front left and the front right and the back row, Trinoff wasn't offensive to me in any of those positions. And unfortunately, Dirac was as configured, right? You run on it again, who knows? As configured, Trinoff or Dirac was a little bit more offensive in the other seats. In fact, in one of the sweeps that we played with Dirac engaged, if you sat in the right seat, Ryan said at one point, I think it was you, right? It wasn't you, it was you, right?
I think so.
That I think one of your speakers might have blown or something. And I said, and Bob and I were in the other two seats. This was the first listening session. And we're like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, listen over here. It sounds bad. And so we went over there and it's like, it's just in that seat. Because it had applied real granular EQ for that main listening position that wasn't needed in the right seat. So the boundary interactions weren't good in that right seat. And it made it sound bad over there, to the point where Ryan's like, your speaker's blown. So
you could hear it rattling. Like it was not great.
Yeah.
So it's the less is more type of route in my brain with those real granular EQs, and those things are all those filters they're applying are so granular that if you're tailoring it for that main seat, you got to be real careful with it, especially if you care about more than one seat. There were some very interesting differences. Both of them, especially the Dirac, seemed to kind of change the elevation of the center channel. Like the singer seemed, and I don't remember if it was on or off, but I was surprised to hear the elevation change. Like when we've toggled it on and off, the singer's voice lifted 2 or 3 feet. The imaging changed.
Yeah, Ryan, I'll talk about that. Don't worry.
The other thing that was kind of interesting is on the track that Ryan recommended, it was who's the name? Black.
The Ghost of Johnny Cash?
Yes. The microphone, it sounded like the Shure microphone sounds when I'm here versus here on the track when you turn Dirac on and off. Like it was a rich, hearty sound with, I think it was with Dirac on that one. And then if you took it away, it just sounded a little bit further away to me.
No, I think it was the opposite.
Well, one of the two. It changed, and also the ambience. So like the vocal was closer, but the ambience in the room was also changing a little bit too. It sounded like a different recording. So that was interesting, and from that perspective, that it could change it that much. In general, I just preferred them off over the course of listening to them on 2 different occasions and listening to it on my own throughout the week. That's that. So Ryan, what was your takeaway?
So I would agree. I think I universally preferred Room EQ off. And my notion behind how Room EQ is, and this is just in a general sense, regardless if it's Optimizer, Dirac, Odyssey, Wipeout, Room Perfect, any of them, it doesn't matter to me. They're effectively an easy button, if you will. They allow you to do a decent job without necessarily having all of the knowledge to do it manually. Now, one thing they can do that we can't necessarily do manually is they do a lot of phasing that I can't necessarily do manually. So they do have that advantage, but I can't say that I was missing that, because I always preferred I typically prefer the manual EQ over a room EQ option. So everything that Jonathan said talking about the room EQs, I agree with. However, I think it's really important to also talk about the quality of life things that these processors and these systems bring, because you're not just buying these for optimizer or for Dirac and art. You're buying them because of the control that they give you over the system. So the things that they bring to the table are numerous. And I won't talk about all of them, but there's a lot of things that these processors can do that really nothing else can do on the market. And the number of things that they can do simultaneously and the amount of granular control that you can have in comparison to other things. Now, whether or not you want that stuff, I don't know, but you do have a lot of that on both of these systems. So there's a lot that these things bring to the table, but I don't think you should buy one of them based on the room EQ that you're going after. Yeah, they do a decent job, but I can pretty confidently say that I'm going to pick no room EQ versus any of those. And I've been that way for some time. Jonathan, I think, is the same way, that we just don't really like them. We like manual and very little. One thing I did like about the Tronov was being able to tone things down. I think that was very cool, that you could actually tell it. And Denon and Marantz have this, and maybe some other ones, that you can apply a crest filter or a crest limiter where you can tell it, I only want to boost this much, I only want to cut this much, and you can change that. In Dirac, you can't. So certain room EQ systems, you have more functionality than other ones. Than the optimizer, you could do this. Another thing that you could do is you could limit how much or when you wanted it to actually correct something. So I could tell it, if an issue is wider than, say, a quarter octave, then address it. If it's not, leave it alone. So it was cool that you could have interaction into how it was addressing these things. And I hope that Dirac at some point will implement that, because there's things that I think Dirac does really well with art, with its support that it can do with all of the frequencies. I think that's super cool. There's pros and cons to both with the room EQ. As far as the systems go, there's a lot that they bring to the table. Whether or not you think they're worth it for those price points, that's subjective. But I won't say that they failed because we didn't like their optimizer or Dirac. I think Jonathan and I aren't necessarily the best test cases for that, because we almost universally dislike all of them for how they work.
So here, there's a question in chat saying that Marantz AV10, talking about that. I have a little experience that I want to share about that with Odyssey. I switched back to Odyssey, recalibrated for the space testing that I'm doing, and Odyssey is sticky per input. And I thought I turned it off on all, but I missed the Blu-ray player. In some of this testing, I switched over to my Blu-ray to watch Top Gun Maverick, and Odyssey was on, and I thought it was off. And I'm watching the Top Gun scene. It's the first time I've actually watched it in my house, because I just watched it twice in the theater when it was new, and I just wanted to wait a little bit more time. But for the space testing, I thought it'd be a good case. So I'm watching the final act of the movie. That's when they start the canyon run, and they're getting ready to do the bombing mission, and then all the way to him landing on the carrier and fighting multiple jets and all that kind of stuff. I was having trouble understanding the mask comms. Like every time they're talking, 50% of the time I was probably like, I can't understand what they're saying. That is not a problem that I have with these CBTs historically. Like even movies like Tenet, where people complain everywhere that this has horrible dialogue. I can hear it. So I was actually disappointed, thinking like, man, this is the first time I've ever heard a movie in my theater that sounds worse than the commercial cinema, because I watch it 2 different commercial cinemas and I never had trouble understanding them with the mask. And I thought, this is disappointing. So I went back in after to change it from directional bass to standard bass, and I realized Odyssey was on, and I thought, well, that's curious. Now I got to test it again. So I turned Odyssey off and I listened to that same sequence, and I could understand every darn word. So it's not just these programs. They're trying to fix stuff and they're messing up other stuff. Like I wish I should save this config and just show it at M-Wave or something. you wouldn't expect something like that. Other things didn't. When they weren't in the mask or whatever, everything sounded fine. I didn't have trouble understanding dialogue outside of that. But when they were in those calm masks, you know, like the jet air breathing masks, I couldn't understand what they were saying. Odyssey did that. Little things like that, these auto EQ systems break. They might fix certain things and they break other things.
Yes. So, but I think for the general population that doesn't necessarily have a career in understanding manual EQ or have 1 or 2 decades of understanding how or learning behind it, they are a helpful tool. So I won't discount that. They can help, but people also need to understand, as Jonathan said, that they can also get things wrong. So it's important to check their work, right? Like a teacher would a student. Go back and check, do a comparison if you could run multiple and cycle through them. It's to me, it's kind of a kludge. It's not that it's a bad thing. It's just it's allowing or fixing something that you maybe somebody doesn't have access to or the know-how or capability to do on their own. There's nothing wrong with that. They can do a lot. So
to your point about Trinov being able to set limits of how far it applies, I wish you could do that out of the box with Odyssey.
Yeah.
And with all the EQs, say don't do any more than 3 dB.
Oh,
don't
you can do that in the multi EQ app
for $200.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't have that. I
don't $200 is a whole lot cheaper than buying a Trinov, though.
What?
You want a license for it?
I'll just end up turning it off like I do now. That's at the end of the day.
MW brings up a good point. Why don't processors measure after calculated correction? Why do they always do an estimate? That's a great point.
Because they don't want to
show you what they really did.
There's this classic story. I've shared it on here before, I think, where we were doing that 2014 room shootout EQ, and it was one of the systems, the one that has a nice graph by Anthem. That's
Anthem
it.
Shows you a nice little curve.
The graph looked like something out of a textbook. We were all thinking like, this is amazing. If it really did this, is amazing. We get an Omni mic. No, come on. So yeah, you're right, MW.
1-to-1 smoothing.
Yeah, exactly. Be funny. Bruce, appreciate the $2 super chat there, brother. Got a few more questions that we will hit here. Stitch, do you guys think that we'll see new projectors at the end of 2024? So this year, we're going to get some new projectors?
Only in Ryan's room.
I think he's talking about in the industry. Like, are we going to get some new models?
You don't think so in 2024?
I don't think so.
I think we will. I really do. And because, like, think about it. JVC, typically, they do what? Maybe about every 3 years?
Yeah, but
that 24 would be the 3rd year, right?
I kind of wonder if COVID screwed some of that up.
Maybe.
Wait, is he saying
at least by 25?
End of 24.
Yes.
Okay.
You thought he was meaning like tomorrow?
I was thinking in 2024. Like maybe December timeframe, maybe November timeframe. Yeah, that's because they do a 3-year cycle. So that's fair.
I think we'll see something. I don't know what it'll be, whether it's from Epson, JVC, Sony. I think Sony, they got to be working on something, man.
They need a replacement for the VW5000. They don't have anything to fit that hole.
Yeah, but we don't have anything. And I mean, I haven't heard anything.
I don't know. Sony was one of the last ones to come out. You think they'll have something else?
Again, I don't know. I mean,
Sony came out before Epson, didn't they? Wasn't it JVC and Sony and then Epson?
I don't think so.
No. Think of that time you had the Sony over in your room and we compared your NZ9 versus the Sony 7000. That was pretty early, wasn't it?
I'm just thinking back to M-Wave 2022 where the Sonys, that was like the first time that anybody had seen them was when they were in the room.
First got them.
Yeah.
And we had all three. They were all kind of came out about the same time because we got them all. It was crazy. Ryan did a great job at buying those and rounding them up and borrowing them and stealing them, whatever he had to do to get them.
There will definitely be some USTs in 2024 for sure.
Cool. Yeah, so we'll wait and see. I'm excited. Kristen Byron joining the chat a little late, but was wondering, I have a Marantz 7706, love to upgrade to a 15-channel processor. Is it worth it when I get, basically, will I get better sound quality from a 15-channel, or does he just add more channels?
What's the 7706 give you, 11?
Yeah, 11.2.
You won't get better quality sound.
No.
You'll just get more channels. We've talked about that a lot on this channel.
The 4 sub-outs, that's a big deal.
Directional bass, baby.
Yeah. No.
he can get that on a non-15 channel processor though.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you won't get any better sound quality. But if you need the channels, you need the channels.
Look at the chat. People wishful thinking. Ryan saying 5,000 lumens, 10,000 native contrast, $10,000.
For sure.
That ain't happening.
Ryan's hoping it'll come out before he buys his projector for M-Wave.
I mean, that's like a hot rodded Epson, isn't it?
10,000 native contrast is like double. Well,
no,
not quite double. Epson's what, 7,000?
I thought it was around 10.
I think it's more like 7.
Aren't the JVCs in like the high teens?
They're like high teens. Epson's like 7. But 5,000 lumens, you're going to be giving up native contrast at that point. Unless you're Christie.
On the projector. But yeah, you're in like $100,000 territory at least.
Unless you're getting a Christie like Ryan.
Shut up.
How's that cooling room going? You got that in the plans yet?
I'm building for it. I'm not saying that's what's happening. No, I try and build ahead. I want future me to not hate past me. That's the whole point of it. So I always try and build ahead and then utilize it immediately, like I did in my last room. I'm going to build for 30 channels and then use them all. Like I thought I was going to, I'm going to do this in 10 years and next year and they're full.
And I'll sell my speakers at a quarter of the value because I've got 30 holes in them. Because I had to mount them everywhere in the room. And they didn't come with bracket.
No.
TN Bills fan, are the Perlisson S and R series? Are they timber matched?
Yes.
Can you mix and match those?
There is a slight difference, though. The frequency response on the S series is better, and the S series can handle way more power than the R series can. But still really good speakers. Good. Yes. We do have a bunch of them available M-Wave demos. So if you're interested in anything, let us know.
Very, very cool. Last couple here, guys. What's that?
Never mind.
Vivid Theater Kef THX N walls come with a back box.
No.
Do they? They do not.
Maybe the really high-end ones, but most of them don't.
And last question of the night. Johnny Bravo, I've got an NZ7 and noticed motion issues. Jonathan, you mentioned that you had some issues as well. Would a Sony 6000 be better at motion? I know you mentioned some of the Epsons have better motion handling, right?
Yeah. So are you talking about PWM pulse width modulation sensitivity? Or are you just talking about like the motion seems a little jerky? The Epson has got better motion than NZ7. However, if you've updated the NZ7's firmware, it's not on the notes. I would bet some money that they did something with their frame interpolation, because I feel like that NZ7, and it's something that's been a sore thumb for me for 2 years. After I updated that last firmware, I feel like the motion's better on the NZ7 than it has been in the past.
I would not go from a JVC or an Epson to a Sony, mainly because you're losing 120p. And if you really care about motion and if you're gaming on it, that's a big deal now. The Sonys don't have it. They're 60p.
And what I was going with the PWM, if you're sensitive, like if your eyes are sore, so there's different things, right? You're noticing the motion's a little jerky. That's one thing. If your eyes are getting sore like mine do with the JVC because you have PWM sensitivity, the Sony's worse with PWM than the JVC is. Like it's way more flashy. If you slow motion record at the camera, the Sony looks like a jackhammer by comparison as far as how much flash it has compared to the JVC. And the JVC is already, if you're PWM sensitive, it's already kind of on that scale. So no, I don't think so. Now they do have some motion creation functionality on Sony that's supposed to be pretty good, but I don't have any experience with that. Do you, Ryan? Have you played with that at all?
With what?
The motion engine on the Sony, like you can dial it in 1 through 100 or whatever.
Sony's motion handling's good. I mean, it's decent. It's not mad VR level, but they've been known to have good motion. The problem is you're not going to get 120p. I mean, I think out of all of them, the Epson's probably got the best motion, but it's also DLP, and DLPs typically have better motion due to how...
Not DLP, LCD.
Sorry, LCD. Yeah. It has the best motion out of all of them, out of all three.
Yeah, you mentioned it's got good motion.
Jonathan's done a lot of testing on that.
I have a lot and a continuing amount.
Mm-hmm. And you've even got some videos on your channel. So if you guys aren't subscribed to the amazing Jonathan Von England, head over to his channel. Subscribe.
We got one left. Is that it? Are we done?
I think that's it. That's all I got.
That's it.
That's good timing because their movie just ended upstairs. I heard it.
See, look there, man. Go love on your kids. 2 hours and 40 minutes.
You wanted to be done in an hour.
It never works anymore.
No, it's not going to happen.
Well, we can just get a ton of questions, and hopefully what you see on the podcast is we really just try to serve you guys. I mean, ideally, we want to share a little bit about what's going on in our lives, even if we're talking kidney stones. But the main topic is you answering your questions, helping you out, trying to give you as much value in these. And so if you enjoy the podcast, definitely share it with people. Hit the like button on the way out. Hope you guys have an incredible new year. Be safe out there. And so we won't have a podcast this Sunday. Enjoy the time with your family. We'll catch you guys next week. What's that?
But next Sunday.
Yep. The following Sunday, we'll be back.
And I'm going to try and put these on Apple Music and Spotify, starting with this one. That is my mission.
All right. Let's make it happen. All right, fellas. Love y'all. Appreciate you. Have a great week.